When the defense throws a kitchen sink at you, you need to have a really good relationship with your center, being able to check each other, point each other out. If I do something he doesn't like, he's like, hey, no, I've had this experience before. Let's get out of this. That relationship is so important, and to be on the same page, and I believe that's really what takes a football team over the edge. You always hear the great teams, whether it's Peyton Manning, his center, Tom Brady, his center, all these great teams and all these Super Bowl winning teams all have a quarterback and center relationship like no other.
It's Unnecessary Roughness, presented by Meineke, doing car care right. Here's your boy Q.
And the Raiders went out and got a good center, right? They went out and got a center that we talked about all offseason long before it actually became official. Hell, we were talking about the Raiders going out and getting a center while the season was still going on. We had already kind of fast-forwarded and fast-tracked and looked ahead to see who was the available free agents and realized there was this guy named Tyler Linderbaum that was in Baltimore that wasn't going to come to a long-term agreement on a contract extension with the Baltimore Ravens, and that was the guy that should be selected and should be signed in free agency, should be made priority in free agency by the Silver and Black to start to put this offensive line together, and that's exactly what the Raiders did. And now Tyler Linderbaum will be that anchor of the Raiders offensive line, and he'll have that quarterback-center relationship, whether that's with Kirk Cousins, Fernando Mendoza, Aiden O'Connell, or a combination of all three. He will be that guy. That's one thing that we know for sure. It is Unnecessary Roughness here on RaiderNation Radio 920. Got my man Ari in the Lotus Broadcasting Studio. Of course, I'm here in Studio Q for another day. Always excited and fired up to be with you. Got a big show lined up for you today. We've got winning on the way. We've got all kind of good stuff for you, some really good guests. It's so funny how days could change. You can have one guest one day, and you can have a loaded roster the very next day, but that's just how it goes, especially in July when there's a lot of folks like we've been doing, getting our vacation time in when we can. So sometimes there's people that are available, and then there's other days where they're just not available. And so sometimes it's just hit or miss. We like to be more balanced, but that's just how it goes some days. So it was funny. Yesterday we had one guest in Gilbert Manzano. Today we've got a whole starting lineup. So Jennifer Azzi, former standout women's hooper. She was part of the ACEs organization. She's now president of the 9 Awards and president of, the 9 project that Mark Davis put together. And they're having a big banquet. They always have it at Allegiant Stadium coming up on Monday. And so when I found out that I had an opportunity to have Jennifer Azzi on the show, I was like, absolutely. And it's funny because I remember Jennifer Azzi, and I was actually talking with Ari about this earlier in the show. I was like, man, I remember when she was back in San Jose. I remember when she was balling as a professional before the WNBA was even the WNBA, right? She was part of the ABL back in the day. And so it was just so funny thinking about that. So the minute that I knew that Jennifer Azzi was going to be a part of the show, it could be a part of the show, just to talk about the 9 awards that is taking place on Monday, as I mentioned, at Allegiant Stadium and what it's all about. And, of course, going to, get her thoughts on the Aces as well. She was part of that organization. But just a hell of a baller right there in Jennifer Azzi. So anytime I get an opportunity to get her on the show, I'm definitely going to do that. She is the president of the IXs Foundation right now, and that's something that, like I said, Mark Davis put together. And I know Title IX is a huge thing. I remember Title IX and how big of a how big that is and was when it really came to be in college sports. I remember when I was at Central Texas and how that was such a big deal that every school, every team that had college athletics was supposed to have a Title IX department, and just where that started and where it's at right now and how it's continued to grow and really help women along in a major way. So Jennifer Azzi will join us coming up, starting things off at 2:30. Look forward to that conversation. Nick Shook, NFL.com. He'll join us at 3 o'clock. We'll scatter shoot all things NFL. We'll obviously talk some Raiders with him as well and kind of get his thoughts as we're a few weeks out from the start of training camp. What is he, kind of looking at for the Raiders in particular? He covers the whole league, but do want to get his thoughts on, what he's, anticipating, I should say, this year for the Silver and Black. So Nick Shook will join us coming up at 3 o'clock. And then our normal Thursday guest, Vinny Bonsignore from the California Post, and, of course, the Morning Tailgate here on RaiderNation Radio 920. He'll join us at 3:30. And I look forward to the conversation with Vinny. I really do. And this is the reason why. And it's funny, I go back to, and I was driving into the station this morning, I was listening to the Morning Tailgate, and I went back to the conversation that myself and Paul Gutierrez from Raiders.com had earlier in the week, and he said, and I believe Ari wrote it on the window there in the studio, that you can never talk about the quarterback enough, right? You can't talk about the quarterback too much. And so I heard Vinny and Clay this morning very adamant. Didn't know exactly where the conversation started, but what I was able to hear, I understood where they were going, and I know Vinny's been very adamant about Mendoza playing as much as possible. Like play him. You don't want to waste his first year. I know he's kind of described it as that, and it'd be a disservice if he doesn't play the majority of the season. And so there's such a big debate, and it's funny while I'm driving, it's a good conversation when you start talking back to the radio. So I'm driving on my way into the radio station. And I kept saying to myself, yeah, but why is everyone in such a rush? Why do they have to be in a rush? What is it that is so critical that it has to be right now? And I understand, and Vinny was not saying that it has to be the entire season and he has to start day one, but it almost seemed like if he doesn't play the majority of the season, then it's a wasted season, and I don't see it that way, right? And I'm not saying that the way I see it is correct. I don't agree with the narrative that, you could waste a season of Fernando Mendoza. I think if the Raiders are winning games, you're not wasting anything. And we've had the conversation here on the show, right? Who do you want to play as the starting quarterback for the team? Do you want the Raiders to go out there and roll out Fernando Mendoza so he gets as much burn as possible and, like Vinny says, kind of develop and allow him to get better as he goes along? And some people do learn best like that. Right? And so I can't answer for Fernando Mendoza what's his best way of learning. Some people can sit back and observe and learn. Some people have to do and learn. So I'm not in the position to say what's best for Fernando Mendoza from a personal standpoint from his person. All I could do is say what it sounds like the plan is that the Raiders have, and the initial plan is to have Kirk Cousins start. Where does that go? Who knows? But, I'm very much in the camp of if the Raiders are winning games, why would you just be so quick to move on and bring in Fernando Mendoza? And on the other side of things, if they're not winning games, then by all means throw him in. Or if he comes out of training camp and he's phenomenal when camp opens up and all of a sudden you're like, man, this dude's balling, and preseason he's looking really good, then hell, don't put Kirk Cousins in at all, right? I don't think it has to be like one way or the other right now. I don't think that they have to make some decision and it's got to be so hell-bent on you have to do this and you have to do this in this way or else you're going to do a disservice. So I know it's a good, healthy conversation because, like I said, I was talking to the radio on the way into the station. So that's when you know that it's a good conversation, when you're in the car by yourself and you're talking to the radio. So I look forward to the conversation with Vinny. And it's not to have an argument. It's just, all right, this is what I'm thinking. What are you thinking, and why? Really trying to get to the why. It's always about the why for me. So Vinny Bonsignore, California Post, RaiderNation Radio 920 Morning Tailgate. He'll join us coming up at 3:30, and then at 4:30, Mariah Janos, Fox 5 Sports. She'll join us to talk all things Aces and what's going on with them, and the injury to Asia Wilson, and looks like she's going to be back. Looks like it was just a little minor, lower leg injury that she had, but she should be good to go. But they don't have Kennedy Carter, and I said this the other day when Kennedy Carter got waived. Matter of fact, when the news broke, it was here on the show, and I remember stopping. I was like, oh man, I saw that coming, but I hate that because she's a really talented player, but she's never really been able to stick anywhere. She's been suspended multiple times, was out of the league last year, and I hate that for her because I would like to see her get into a place where she's, feeling good, she's happy, and she's out there balling. It just seems like even when she was playing well with the Aces, it just didn't seem like she was, real happy, and never saw her with a big smile. Not that I was around the team a whole lot, but just never saw her with that, like a big smile and joy on her face that playing a sport and playing it at a high level would bring you. So we'll talk all things Aces with Mariah Janos from Fox 5 coming up at 4:30. So we got ladies starting things off and ladies closing things out, right? So we got Jennifer Azzi, former standout women's hooper. She'll join us at 2:30. Nick Shook at 3 o'clock. Vinny Bonsignore at 3:30. And Mariah Janos, Fox 5 Sports, coming up at 4:30. We'll hear from you in the meantime, in between time as well, 702-365-9200. That's the text line and the phone line. We've got winning on the way, as I mentioned. Ari, do you have the word of the day for this week, for today, I should say, for the summer fun, or do I have to go and reference
No, I
it?
got it. And
all right.
the good reference is something that you and I are not great at, and it is swim. SWIM. Swim is the word
Nice.
of the day.
There you go. There you go. Made it easy.
365-9020.
Made it easy. New York trip is the trip that we're hooking up this week in the Summer of Fun, brought to you by Terribles. You can take the trip or you can take the cash. The cash is $3,000. Just get that text in before 5 o'clock and you'll be good to go. So swim. That's very simple. I'll have to admit to you, Ari, that I did attempt to swim a little something while I was in Hawaii. You know the funny thing about swimming? I'm not a guy that can – I'm not going to sit here and do any Michael Phelps. Like, you'll never mistake me for some Michael Phelps dude where I'm swimming over the water. But under the water, like holding my breath and just kind of – I don't know, swimming under the water, I guess is what you call it. I'm actually okay at that.
You got me beat on that. I am horrible.
I don't know, man. I don't know what it is,
Good
but
for
I can
you.
do that. So, when you're on vacation, you're in Hawaii, you know what I say, when you're in Rome, do like the Romans. Hey, man, look, if there's water, if there's a body of water, you got to go ahead and get into it and do your thing.
you're
So
right.
we did have some fun out there. But, hey, it's easy. The word for the day, swim. Just get that word in by 5 o'clock. You'll be in to win the Summer of Fun trip this week, which is New York City. You can take the trip or you can take the cash. The cash is $3,000. Again, that's brought to you by Terrible. So we got a big show lined up for you. Want to jump into it. Before we do jump into it, though, before we jump into the open drive, we got to hear from our guy E-Rob. Yesterday was important. Tomorrow's going to be important. But today is as well, and this is why.
Because every day matters. The older you get, the more you start appreciating day in and day out. Because you know I can't get that time back. I'm in the business of saying, not if I would have did this or if I would have did that. I'm in the business of now.
I'm in the business of now as well. So right now, let's go ahead and jump into the opening drive.
The opening drive of Unnecessary Roughness on RaiderNation Radio 920 AM is brought to you by Paul Pata Law. It's not about the injury, it's about the recovery.
So already got a couple texts, and we do appreciate that. One from Just Win Will. He wanted to lead us off, and I appreciate it. He said, RaiderNation Radio 920 is the free-range farm that has a voluminous amount of space for Raiders fan brains to roam freely. Have a great show today, fellas. Aloha, Raiders. I love the fact that Just Win Will is able to put, he'll take little phrases that we have here or a word or two here and there, and he'll put it together in one text and really kind of set the tone for the show. So I definitely appreciate that voluminous amount of space for Raider fan brains to roam freely. And, yeah, feel free to get your fan brain roaming around here on Unnecessary Roughness, RaiderNation Radio 920. And then Sir Whiskey Ray hit us up. Hey, Q, I definitely remember Jennifer Azzi when she was with the San Jose Jammers back in the day. She had a major game. Please pass that along to her when interviewing. Thank you. That's Sir Whiskey Ray. And, yeah, there's no doubt. And like I said, it's so funny, man. I was in the office earlier, and I was talking to Ari, and I was trying to get him to find some old Jennifer Azzi highlights. I was like, man, it'll blow her mind if she comes on this show that we call Unnecessary Roughness here on RaiderNation Radio 920 and say, hey, that was right there from 97. That was a San Jose Lasers type highlight right there. It would blow her mind just to hear the highlight, but knowing that we used to go down to the San Jose Convention Center or San Jose, I can't remember exactly where they played at, but yeah, man, I mean, that was, like I said, that was the WNBA before the WNBA was even around. The San Jose State Event Center and San Jose Arena is where they played. So that's why I said I look forward to the conversation we'll have with Jennifer Azzi. That'll come up in about 15 minutes or so here on RaiderNation Radio 920. But thanks for that text. I definitely do appreciate you. I did want to go ahead and get into this conversation, and it really kind of builds off the conversation we had yesterday, but we're not going to talk about Max Crosby and spend a ton of time on Max. Now, if you want to add him to the mix, you could always do that. But we spent a lot of time on yesterday talking about, how much better the team could be with the additions that they made, especially on the defensive side of things. We started talking about Clay Walker and Nakobe Dean and all the guys that they have brought in. So it got me thinking about, what do you think the biggest and best offseason addition was made by the Raiders and why? Like, what was the biggest and best offseason addition? And always the why is always what matters. So as much as we talked about on yesterday about all these different additions are going to make Max Crosby's life even easier, well, what offseason addition meant the most to this team and why? And it's funny because I thought about it and I was thinking, all right, well, this player is going to be, like we said yesterday. I mean, we broke it down and spent so much time talking about all the guys on the defensive side of the ball that should help out Max Crosby and what he's going to be able to do. I said, yeah, but who's going to help out the overall team in general? And honestly, it's so funny, and maybe this is going to be the same answer that you came up with. I came up with the head coach. I mean, when it was all said and done, with all the additions that have been made, and trust and believe there's been plenty, just like we heard on the way coming in, right? Talking about Tyler Linderbaum. As you heard Fernando Mendoza talking about the quarterback-center relationship. Obviously, Tyler Linderbaum was a big addition for the Raiders this offseason. But all roads, to me, all led back to Clint Kubiak, and this is why. Well, Clint Kubiak, that addition led to a whole new coaching staff. A coaching staff that I believe most of us have a lot of confidence in, especially when it comes to the offensive line. You got Rick Dennison there, who's been there, done that multiple times. He's been around the league for a very long time. He's got the skins on the wall. He's got the resume. He's got the Super Bowl rings to back it up. So we all feel better that, okay, the offensive line's going to be better. Clint Kubiak also led to the addition of Kirk Cousins, which is a veteran quarterback. Clint Kubiak also is going to be tied at the hip with the franchise quarterback, which is Fernando Mendoza. We all know, no matter who, Ari could have been the head coach, and we knew that Fernando Mendoza was going to be the number 1 overall pick, right? It could have been anybody. Pete Carroll could still be in that position, and Fernando Mendoza was going to be the number 1 overall pick. But that relationship that, just like Ben Johnson has with Caleb Williams, like Ben Johnson wanted the Bears, why? Because of Caleb Williams. Clint Kubiak, in part, wanted the Raiders because he knew Fernando Mendoza was on the way, and he was going to be able to have that relationship. So with the head coach addition, that also leads to that relationship right there with Fernando Mendoza. The Clint Kubiak addition leads us to believe that the offense is going to be a lot better, which opens things up for Brock Bowers and Ashton Jeanty. Right? So this is why all roads for me keep going back to Clint Kubiak as the biggest offseason addition for the Raiders, biggest and best offseason addition. Right? And then if the offense is successful, like we think it's going to be successful, not saying it's going to be, the Rams or the greatest show on turf or, whoever is putting up 27, 28 points a game. I'm not saying that, but I don't think that they're going to put up 14 points a game. That's for sure. I think they're going to be a lot better than that. And if they are a lot better than that, if I am correct in that assumption, then that means that the defense should be better. For one reason, that they won't be on the field the whole time. So as I started thinking about all the different additions, they have front office additions, they've got coaching staff additions, they've obviously got player additions. There's so much that they have added to this organization and this team. For me, all roads ended up leading back to Clint Kubiak, and it's funny because he was the last head coach hired in the coaching cycle, obviously, because he went there and he was on the Super Bowl run with the Seattle Seahawks. So, that to me is the best, and most important offseason addition for the Raiders, and why, from my point of view. But, again, that doesn't mean that that's the only, point of view. That doesn't mean that that is the correct answer. That is just my answer. So we throw it out there to you at 702-365-9200. What do you think the biggest and the best offseason addition was that was made by the Raiders, and why? Let us know your thoughts. Just when Will's funny. Great topic, Q. That's easy. It's retaining Spytek. He's the architect of it all. Sorry, fam. Not trying to one-up you. LOL. Nah, hey. no need to apologize, brother. Right? I mean, I think retaining Spytek, I guess it's a great answer, too, because he is the architect of it all, even though I know Tom Brady gets a lot of, like national credit. I always try to bring it back. As many interviews that I do, as many shows that I go on, everybody's like, man, the Tom Brady effect. And I keep saying, yeah, but you're not giving John Spytek enough credit. And I know Spytek doesn't care to hear his name, or that it's all about that, or, who gets the credit, who doesn't get the credit. But he does deserve a lot of credit for what he was able to do. This offseason has his thumbprints all over it. You're right about that. The only reason I didn't go there, and again, that's a great answer, and maybe someone will agree with Just Win Will. The only reason I didn't go there is because I felt like retaining John Spytek was a no-brainer. I kind of felt like that was one of those things that was never going to be a question, right? And I know that the GM has been, moved on from. They moved on from Ziegler. They moved on from Tom Telesco, and then all of a sudden they brought in John Spytek. So, that's maybe I shouldn't have glossed over it so easily. But I think that you bring up a really good point, because he is the architect of what they've got going on with this team, and I believe the reason why a lot of folks feel very confident that this team is going to be a lot better than they have been in the previous years. Obviously, we can never sit here and guesstimate and tell you what a lot better means as far as how many wins that's going to turn into. That's up to the team to go out there and produce. I don't think that they're going to be a 3-win team, right? I don't think I'm going out on a limb when I say that. I think you're going to see, a much better team. And when I mean better just all around, not even just wins and losses. I think you just mean better. It's just you're going to see plays that make sense. You're going to see football being played that makes sense. You're going to see third and one, not from the shotgun, right? You're going to see things that make sense, setting the team up for success. And I don't want to say that none of these other coaches had the players prepared or had them in the right position, but it just feels like to me that football guys are going to do the football stuff this year, right? And it was funny. I was talking to JT earlier this week, and we're talking about what's coming up this this season, and he always talks to the head coach, and it's just I was pretty fired up about his opportunity to talk to Clint Kubiak, because I said, look, all you got to do is ask him a football question, and he's going to go, right? And so all the times, when we hear coaches sometimes and you hear him say, oh, he didn't really say nothing. He said a whole lot of words but didn't say anything. If you talk ball with Coach Kubiak, he'll give you something. So to me, I'm pretty excited about that. I think that JT's going to have a great opportunity to get some really good answers out of Coach Kubiak that we actually can use, that aren't just coach speak and – the guys are working really hard, and, they're competing every day, and every day they're trying really hard. And these guys, it's not going to be that. I believe when a football question is asked, you're going to hear football answers. And so to me, that's one of the features I look forward to this year, is just being able to hear that conversation that JT has weekly with the head football coach, because if a football question is asked, you're going to get a football answer. So, again, man, all roads lead back to Coach Kubiak for me, but I do want to hear from you at 702-365-9200. Barry from Baltimore said it really easy. Fernando's the biggest offseason addition. And it's funny, and thank you for that text. I thought that too, right? I thought that too, but we've seen quarterbacks ruined in the league if they don't have the proper coaching and proper structure around them. Right? We've seen guys that look like they have all the talent in the world, and they get to a location that I don't want to say is not ready for them, but just doesn't have the proper plan for them. Let's go. You said Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams earlier, so let's just go ahead and stick with that. Right? Let's stick with the Bears and Caleb Williams. How awful did Caleb Williams look year one when they had who was the coach then? Eberflus. Remember when Eberflus was the coach and he had no clue what he was doing? Caleb Williams, it almost felt like he was going to be a bust, even though it was way too early to call him a bust. But, you could just tell that he wasn't in a position that he needed to be in to succeed. And that's why even in the coaching, search, we threw out a bunch of names while the Raiders were looking for him, and there was a defensive guy here, a defensive guy there, or, a guy that, maybe not a play caller. And there was so much debate on what's the best determination. And how many people said, well, if you bring in a defensive-minded coach, then whatever offensive coordinator you bring in, if he's really good and Fernando ends up being that guy, he's going to be gone off to a head coaching job, because that's just how this thing works. That's what I think, honestly, is going to probably happen in L.A. with the Chargers. I think that Mike McDaniel probably is going to be good at being an OC there in L.A. I think he's going to probably make Justin Herbert have a really good season, and then he'll be right back in the cycle to be a head coach. And I don't think he's a very good head coach. I think he's a much better OC. But he'll probably, unless he agrees that he's not a very good head coach and thinks he's just a really good OC, he'll probably try to take another job as a head coach. And then Justin Herbert will have to learn a new system and learn a new style from a new OC. I mean, look at Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. He's had what, 5 OCs in 5 years? Or 5 OCs in 6 years, something like that? 2 of them went off to be head coaches, and Shane Steichen and Kellen Moore. And then there's other OCs that weren't very good. And now they have another OC this year, right? And so he has to continue to learn system after system after system. I mean, hell, not the same thing because he wasn't a first-round pick or a guy that was expected to be a franchise quarterback, but look at what Aiden O'Connell's gone through. Says he's been a Raider. How many OCs has he gone through? So that's why I went back to Clint Kubiak and said, well, that ties in with Cousins. That ties in with Mendoza. That ties in with all these guys, because if everything goes well, you could have your guy for a long time. It's not like, hey, things went well. We started seeing Clint Kubiak being a really good OC when he was in New Orleans, and that's when his name started really popping up. Then in Seattle, it's like, hey, man, this guy's got something cooking, and the Raiders were able to land him. So that was obviously a really big deal, and now they can build their future off of this guy who's got a sharp offensive mind. He's got a rookie quarterback, and they can grow together, Fernando Mendoza and Clint Kubiak. But do want to hear from you, 702-365-9200. Barry said, Q, that wasn't my full text. I said Clint. I just said Fernando because I spelled his name wrong the first time. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. There's the full text. All right. See, Barry, you got to excuse our text line sometimes. It comes in sections, right? Have you ever fallen in sections? That's what our text line does sometimes. It comes through in sections. He said, biggest and best addition this year for the Raiders to me is Clint Kubiak for sure. All the reasons you said, Q, and plus him being an offensive coach. And if the Raiders have success, you don't lose your offensive system and concept and have to switch it up with some of your offensive coaches get promoted and snagged from other teams next year. That is so important to Fernando Mendoza. Okay, Fernando's development. I got it. It said Fernandez's development. That's okay. All right, there we go. Barry, my bad. My bad. So you gotta work with me on the text line, man. Sometimes it messes up. But we do appreciate all the feedback, and that's a great point. 702-365-9200. Keep that feedback coming. What do you think the biggest and best offseason addition that the Raiders made was? Who do you think that was? Why do you think that was? Let us know your thoughts. Again, the biggest and best offseason addition. Who was it? Why was it? Let us know your thoughts. We got Jennifer Azzi joining the show next. It's RaiderNation Radio 920.
That was the opening drive of Unnecessary Roughness on RaiderNation Radio 920 AM. Brought to you by Paul Padala. It's not about the injury, it's about the recovery.
I remember my first game there, and I'm thinking, like, when do the fans show up? Because, they don't tell you during recruiting, there's, no fans, and it wasn't when everything was broadcast at that time. And then one thing led to another, and TAR ended up, recruiting some of the best classes in the country, and within 3 years, we won the national championship, and we were selling out Maples Pavilion. So literally went from, I'm telling you, I could count the fans on two hands, from that to 8,000 fans a game at Maples Pavilion. But it was hard. It was a really hard adjustment.
Now back to Unnecessary Roughness with your boy Q. Presented by Meineke, doing car care right.
Jennifer Azzi right there talking about adjusting from high school ball to college. She went to Stanford. She was a standout, as you heard right there. Championships were in her future. She was an absolute monster on the court. That was part of the Fud Around and Find Out podcast, and there was a lot of young ladies that grew up and said, hey, I want to be like her. I want to be like Jennifer Azzi, because she was the one that really was out there balling, especially here on the West Coast. And, I could go all the way back to the 90s, and I'm not trying to age her, but I go back to the 90s and watching her ball in San Jose, and me and my friends used to go up there well before the WNBA to check out Jennifer Azzi. Speaking of her, she actually joins us now on the phone lines, and she is the president of the IXs Foundation. Mark Davis found that. She was part of the ACES organization, and as I mentioned, big-time baller as well. And Jennifer, thanks so much for the time. I do appreciate you. I was just waxing poetically about your fantastic career, and, I guess I was aging both of us, because I remember going and watching you play in San Jose, but a hell of a career, and it's such an honor to have you on the show. Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you so much. I was smiling when I heard you mention San Jose, and, that was a pretty fun time, kind of being around the game when it was really starting to come into its own, on the heels of the Olympic team, the 96 team. And, there was so much buzz and energy and hope, which is exactly why I came to Las Vegas, because I felt the same energy as soon as I met Mark Davis in, 2021, and seeing kind of what he was about to do here. And it's been an incredible journey.
What have you thought about the way that the women's game has evolved? You're talking about 30 years now of the WNBA. Yeah. They're celebrating that this year, and where it was when you were around and really got things going to where it is right now.
The game has always been good. I will say that. Now, though, there's more parity. There's more elite players. And, training has changed over the years. Access has changed over the years. And acceptance has changed over the years. And then the number one thing is investment. And I think that, looking at the ACES franchise and Mark Davis and what he's done, not just for the ACES, but I think for women in general through the IXs Foundation and, everything that he's done here has been remarkable. Having the ACES headquarters, winning 3 out of 4 championships, it can blow your mind, but when you really look behind it and see what, kind of other ownerships have done and, what's been done in the league over the years, there's been nothing even close to this. When I was playing, we practiced in, junior colleges, high schools, wherever, even in the WNBA. So this thing has taken off, and I think a lot because of Mark and the investment now on behalf of now multiple owners.
No doubt about that. Again, Jennifer Azzi, big-time baller, former Las Vegas Aces Chief Business Development Officer and new president of Mark Davis's Nine Foundation, is with us here on Raider Nation Radio 920. And the big banquet is going to be at Allegiant Stadium coming up on Monday. It's a big to-do. It's awards, the Nine Awards, and every year it's really exciting. But just tell us about the Mark Davis Nine Foundation and how beneficial that is, as you mentioned, for young women, ballers, and just making things more equal and giving them opportunities.
Well, I think this is sort of Mark's, his way of highlighting women in all sports and in all, in business and impact. And the way that the Nines came about was, in my very first meeting with Mark and, with Nikki Fargas, Aces president, and, we were all kind of sitting around. There were about 5 of us on staff at that time with the Aces, and it was 2022. And so I just said, hey, what are we doing for the 50th anniversary of Title IX? And so, Mark said, hey, if we should do a celebration. And he said, so Title IX was about equal participation. Mm-hmm. And he said, now what we're doing is we're taking it from participation to compensation. And women need to be paid more. These athletes and these women are the best at what they do, and I'm going to invest in them. And he said, go for it. So, we had access to Allegiant Stadium, and I was able to call Billie Jean King, get her there the first year as our Legacy Award winner. I rallied my 96 Olympic teammates because, we had a documentary about our team that year as well. So, it kind of morphed into a celebration of the 50th anniversary to the Nine Awards. And it's been incredible. And this is the first year that we've really looked to kind of amplify what we're doing. So my move here last year, kind of taking this on full time, and it's been remarkable at the response that we've gotten from people.
And I'm glad we're talking about Title IX. Again, Jennifer Azzi is with us here on Raider Nation Radio 920. I was telling the story earlier before you got on the show about when I was in Central Texas, and, Title IX, it's been around, like you said, the 50th anniversary, but it all of a sudden became, that requirement. Like all these colleges had to have a Title IX department and had to have an emphasis. How have you seen even Title IX evolve over the years? So make sure there was like I said, a point of attention from every collegiate outlet out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely evolved over the years, and I think that at first it was holy cow, women can get scholarships, and
right.
I think there was some pretty good regulation around it in the beginning, and then I think sort of maybe it was taken for granted a little bit over the years, and then I think that there were things that fell under Title IX that people maybe didn't realize. Like when I was coaching, that certain things like not wanting to rotate the practice times or do things that, weren't necessarily just about equal scholarships. It was really about equality with funding and equality, in terms of treatment and not just women, like it's across the board. So I think now, what we're doing through the Nines Foundation is, we're at a moment in history with NIL and the transfer portal and all the craziness in the NCAA world. And so I think for us now, it's important to amplify and preserve the spirit and the heart of Title IX. And, I think we're creating a brand also, as much as a brand and a movement, as much as we are just promoting and preserving Title IX.
And coming up on Monday is going to be the Nine Awards. Again, that's at Allegiant Stadium. And as much as I grew up a fan of you and watching you on the hoop court, I also grew up a fan of Lisa Leslie and watching her. And she's going to get the Excellence Award, the 4-time Olympic gold medalist, 2-time world champion gold medalist, 3-time WNBA MVP. I mean, Hall of Famer. I mean, the list goes on and on for Lisa Leslie. How awesome is that for her to get this award coming up on Monday?
It's incredible. I think that, it's fun for me because I was a teammate of hers, and I know what it was like in the years that we played. And so to be able to bring her in, treat her first class, like really honor her in the way that she deserves to be honored is a privilege for me. I know for Mark, I know for, everyone involved with the Nines Foundation and the event, to be able to just kind kind of show, I think, it's like careers like Lisa's. She was right on the cusp of this boom, but she's why we have this boom, So it'll be awesome to recognize her.
And this time of year and what's going on right now with the World Cup, and I'm watching it right now on the TV screen with France and Morocco right now, but the Icon Award is going to Brandi Chastain. And
Yes.
Jennifer, I can never get that image out of my head of Brandi Chastain making that goal, pulling off her jersey and celebrating with Team USA. How fitting is it that the World Cup's going on and Brandi Chastain is being honored as well?
Oh, this is, you couldn't plan this better, right? And Tommy Smith is actually presenting to her.
Nice.
So, sort of the iconic fist in the 68 Olympics. And, and he's sort of, I don't want to spoil it, but there are these iconic moments in sports. And so I think it's cool that he'll be presenting to her as well. And then you think about the gesture that she did showed that once was reserved for men. And it was kind of like this freedom and this, we're here. And, her, Mia Hamm, that group, and we got to honor Mia last year. I think they're the ones that put women's soccer on the map.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did. They did. And I'll tell you, and I know we're going to be able to see them next year in Brazil for 2027, but I just saw that in Brandi Chastain. And, again, that image, that's one of those, Jennifer, that you just say the name and you know what you're talking about.
I know exactly. Yep.
That is awesome. So as the president of, the Nine Foundation, the Mark Davis Nine Foundation, how do you envision this continuing to evolve and get even bigger from here?
So we are, looking at getting into more programming. We're housed at the Al Davis Eddie Robinson Leadership Academy, which is, right between, it's kind of the Mark Davis epicenter, between the Aces and the Raiders. And so we're able to build out here, and then also looking to invest in programs and people that support equality, support women in sports. And so, we're at the heart of building it all out.
I like it. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's a star-studded affair going to be at Allegiant Stadium. Of course, they're going to have the red carpet there, and I guarantee you guys are going to have a great time, and you're doing some really good things. And again, I mean, Mark Davis obviously is fully on board with this, and that's huge. And the way I see women's sports and the equality in women's sports, it just seems like it just continues to grow and grow and grow, and the boom is on the way. The boom is here, but Jennifer, it feels like the real big boom is on the way.
Agree with you 100%. And I think it takes events like this, moments like this, and, you get the right people in the room that really maybe haven't had a ton of exposure to women in sports. And they see this and go, oh, my gosh, this is what every girl dad dreams of. This is what, the real investment into women and women's sports means. And you see these incredible women now a little bit, beyond their athletic careers, and you see the amazing impact that they're having and the great things that they're doing, and the future's bright. So it's a pleasure to be a part of it. It's an honor.
Yeah, it really is. The future is definitely bright. We'll close out with this. It's fantastic stuff. Again, Jennifer Azzi is with us here on RaiderNation Radio 920. I mean, you're there. You know how great this young lady is. What about A'ja Wilson? Not only the talent on the court, but obviously everything she's doing, as you mentioned, stuff off the court and being able to be a role model. And just what have you thought about A'ja Wilson and the young lady that she is?
So A'ja is, when I watch her play, to do what she does at her position is unheard of. I don't know that there's been a male athlete at her position that's been able to accomplish what she's done. I mean, 4-time MVP, took the Aces 3 championships in 4 years. She is a winner. She brings out the best in everyone around her. I think she and Becky Hammond make a great team. And, you're getting banged underneath the basket. You're running end line to end line. You're leading the team in nearly everything, and you're leading the league in nearly everything over the years. And I don't think there will ever be another player like her. Like, she will go down as, hands down one of the, if not the greatest of all time. And it's been really awesome to see her evolve and grow. And, even little things like the way that Nike has embraced her and the shoe and the I see when I see little girls out and about, I mean, they're all wearing her shoe, so it's pretty cool stuff.
It's really cool. I got a pair of the A1s when they first came out, and it's funny going to a game to watch and seeing. I just kept looking down, and I kept seeing all the A1s, men, women, children. It didn't matter who you were or what you were. You were wearing those Asia ones, those Nikes.
Yep, it's like the Jordans.
Yep.
So, yep.
Exactly. Well, Jennifer, fantastic stuff. I really do appreciate you taking some time to join us and talk about, the Title IX Awards, 9 awards coming up on Monday, and obviously everything that you've got going with the Mark Davis 9 Foundation as well. Thank you so much for your time. We definitely appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
All right. Goodbye. See you. Appreciate it. Good stuff. Jennifer Azzi right there. Baller. Absolute baller, man. Just a pleasure to talk to her and continue to see how women's sports continues to evolve and what they're doing and what Mark Davis has been very committed to. I got to give him a lot of respect. And, when he decided that he was going to take over the Aces and, get them their own facility. And, I mean, Ari, we've been talking about the Aces for years. And I remember even when what was Kelsey Plum was still there, and she said at one point they were practicing at UNLV when UNLV wasn't practicing.
Oh, that's right.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I mean, it's just, and Mark Davis was one of the first, if not the first, to get an actual facility for them so they can practice, so they can have their own lockers, so they can have their own film room, so they can have their own recovery room, so they can have their own dietitian, so they can have what the Raiders have. Right, and they do, and it's a hell of a facility. If anyone's ever been over there, it's a great facility. But knowing that you have something of your own and you're not basically living out of a backpack, right, or a duffel bag. My dad used to call it the getaway bag. He's like, "Oh man, you gotta always have a getaway bag in the back of your car." You never know. You never know. Tough times might happen. You gotta have a getaway bag. But the young ladies were literally living out of their getaway bags when they were going to practice
Playing
and
at the
not
highest
being able
level.
and not being able to shower after practice and having to wait till they got home to shower. Like it's really good what Mark Davis was able to do, and it encouraged other owners across the WNBA to decide to get up off their shoulders and make sure that they did that as well. So many thanks to Jennifer Azzi for giving us some time here on RaiderNation Radio 920. We got Nick Shook from NFL.com joining us at the top of the hour, but we do want to hear from you. What do you think was the biggest and best offseason addition for the Raiders, what they made, and why? Let us know your thoughts. 702-365-9200. It's RaiderNation Radio 920.
Now back to Unnecessary Roughness with your boy Q. Presented by Meineke, doing car care right.
Got Nick Shook, NFL.com, joining us at the top of the hour. We'll scatter shoot all things NFL. It's always great to catch up with Nick, see what storylines he's looking at and focus in on as we get closer and closer to the start of training camp. It is Unnecessary Roughness, RaiderNation Radio 920. Big ups to Jennifer Azzi, man. Really happy that she joined the show to start things off. Really appreciate her time and everything that she's got going on. We did want to hear from you, though. What do you think the biggest and best offseason addition that the Raiders made was? Why is it the biggest and best offseason addition? Let us know your thoughts. This really comes off the heel of the conversation we had yesterday about Max Crosby and how much of a big impact, these offseason additions that have been made can even help him out and have him go into the season and have a big time, even better season, right? Because he actually has some help along the way. So, when we sat back and thought about it, we're like, well, what addition was the biggest one? What was the best one? And why? 702-365-9200. I said Clint Kubiak, and to that, Eric said, hey, Q, sure. Kubiak was a very important addition, but as far as players, it's definitely Linderbaum. It wasn't until he was signed that I saw a true change coming, and with that comes hope and excitement. So he's focusing on the players, which is fine. That's why we throw it out there to you. And, Tyler Linderbaum was a free agent that they prioritized. He was numero uno, right? He was the guy that we have been talking about for months. When everyone said, don't draft Fernando Mendoza, you ain't got no offensive line. Don't draft Fernando Mendoza, you're not ready for a franchise quarterback. What did the offensive line do last year? They're not going to be worth the salt. Man, he's going to get killed back there behind those guys. And we all said, you do know they have $100 million in salary cap space. You know that there is a hell of a player there in Baltimore is about to be a free agent. You know it is okay for the Raiders of all teams to go out and spend some money, bring a guy in, just like every other team in the league. Such a funny narrative when they threw that out there like the Raiders weren't ready for a quarterback. What do you mean? What do you mean? They had the means. They had the opportunity. Why wouldn't they get a quarterback? No offensive line. Got to trade. Trade the pick. Trade the pick to the Jets. They're ready. Come on, man. Like that, I always thought that was the funniest narrative. So, focusing on the players, Eric, great text. Appreciate that. And Gabriel, he actually agrees with you. He said, I think the best addition is also the biggest addition. Tyler Linderbaum, anchor of the offensive line. We all know the team goes as far as the line will take them. Appreciate that. Raider Dave said, hey, Q, I'm going to break this down to 2 important points on the offensive side. The biggest addition is definitely the head coach, but the next biggest addition is the retention of Max Crosby. And not only is a great player, but because he is the heart and soul of this team, and that cannot be underestimated. Thanks, Raider Dave. So there you go. On the offensive side, 2 important points. The head coach and then Max Crosby. So, okay. Okay. I think just 2 points in general, right? I mean, and retaining Max is a big thing. That's a big addition because as far as we were concerned, he was gone. So I can see that. And not gonna lie to you, that actually went through my mind for a little bit. And I was like, oh well, I'll get a little bit more creative and get outside the box on it a little bit. So there you go. I like that. Keep that feedback coming at 702-365-9200. Let us know your thoughts on the off-season edition that the Raiders made that you thought was the biggest and the best. We've got Nick Shook, NFL.com. He's coming up at the top of the hour. We'll talk all things NFL. We'll scatter shoot. So if there's something that you have on your mind, if there's a question about a player, a concern, I know there's been a lot of conversation about Terrion Arnold and where you think that he could end up. There's been a lot of people talking about, Terrion Arnold, the Raiders are interested in him. And I say this, when those rumors are out there that the Raiders are interested in insert any player, I feel like it just makes it sexier when you add the Raiders' name to it. I always like to take those rumors with a grain of salt. I don't really see too much of it, but I know that there's people that believe it, and some people that are actually angry when I said I don't think that that's the direction that the Raiders want to go. So we'll ask Nick about Terrion Arnold and all things NFL. We'll do that next. We kick off hour number 2 of the show. It's RaiderNation Radio 920.
I believe it's always better to lean on mentors and coaches, people that know more than I do at that point. For example, I believe that Coach Kubiak, Coach Janok, and Coach Sullivan would have a better idea of what a successful training camp is in their plan and progression for me than I do at this current moment. So I get with them. We talk about my goals. Hey, this is where we want to be. The start of training camp, past OTAs. We've talked about that. We have a June plan and July plan. Then, hey, this is where we want to be at the end of training camp, and this is where we want to be in preseason.
It's Unnecessary Roughness. Presented by Meineke, doing car care right. Here's your boy Q.
Fernando Mendoza right there from the Rush Podcast alongside Max Crosby talking about leaning on coaches and mentors and their goals. And obviously Fernando Mendoza, when he gets in action, that's going to be a big storyline for the Raiders moving forward. And then National Football League, matter of fact. I mean, that's the number 1 overall pick, so everyone wants to know when Fernando Mendoza is going to play. There'll be plenty of anticipation. There'll be plenty of folks guessing early in the season, late in the season, starting the season. Like, there's going to be so much of that at this stage of the game, especially a few weeks out from the start of training camp. It's just a wait and see. It is Unnecessary Roughness here on RaiderNation Radio 920. Join us now on the phone lines is our guy from NFL.com, Nick Shook. And, Nick, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate you. Hope you had a great 4th of July weekend. As far as big storylines in the NFL for you, I know you got an AFC North training camp preview right now, but as far as storylines go in the National Football League, which ones stand out to you the most?
Oh, man, I mean, it's funny because I'm actually in the middle of doing a power rankings of the divisions right now. I'm going team by team, and I'm sitting here just thinking about all the different divisions. I mean, all the different teams and their storylines, going into the season. So it's like it's almost perfect, but I mean, obviously you start with, the Rams and their assembly of their defense and how they're loaded up and ready to chase a title. But you can go well beyond that into the rest of the league and think about Chicago trying to prove that last year wasn't a fluke. Caleb Williams is on the cover of Madden. All the optimism is sky high there. Are the Broncos able to repeat what they did last year? Could the Patriots do the same thing, even though they don't have as soft of a schedule, at least on paper, that they had last year? Is Buffalo finally going to get over the hump? All of these things are extremely intriguing to me. So there's not one specific one that I'm necessarily favoring that much, although there are 2 teams that I am fascinated to see if they can do what I think that they're capable of doing this season. One is the Jacksonville Jaguars, one of the best teams in the NFL in the second half of last season. Liam Cohen's offense really taking full flight with Trevor Lawrence, both using his arm and his legs. I'm really excited to see if they can build on that and what they did, because this is a team that basically kept everything in place. They made very few moves outside of, obviously, the draft, and they said, we're going to run it back. We won 13 games last year, and we really didn't hit our stride until the midway point of the season. We think that we could be even better this year. So can they do that in a division that I think is going to be stronger than people realize, depending on what happens with the Colts? And the other team that I'm keeping an eye on is the Dallas Cowboys, because Look, I've probably valued Dak Prescott at a higher rate than most people have over the last few years. But, you can look at the numbers. You can really look at the tape. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I know that, back when he was trying to get that contract extension way back in 2019, 2020, everybody thought it was preposterous that he wanted the money that he got. But if you look at it now and you look at, in the larger scheme of all these quarterbacks in the NFL, nobody's been as consistently productive and been as good of a passer amid chaos like Dak Prescott has been with the Cowboys. And that offense has been explosive because of him. They were one of the best offenses in the NFL last year, and they had a terrible defense. So now they've reinvested heavily into their defense, which means you have the pieces now. Do they gel in time? Can you coordinate it properly to make sure that they can do their part, because they couldn't last year? If everything goes right there, I think we're going to have a new monster coming out of the NFC East, especially with Philly, and a bit of a minor transition, even though they're basically the kings of the division. If those two teams can deliver on what I expect for both of them, it's going to be very interesting. Those are the two teams that I'm probably looking forward to watching the most.
The funny thing is, you mentioned Dallas, and I had someone ask me about the Cowboys earlier today, and I said, man, it's kind of scary that it's been so quiet around them. It almost feels like I'm waiting for something to happen with the Cowboys. Is that a positive that it's been so quiet?
Absolutely, because this is a franchise that attracts attention in large part because their owner understands that, eyeballs means business, means money, and that's how they've always been. But it's also a team that, their owner and their front office hasn't done a good job of keeping guys on the roster in timely fashion. We talk about the Micah Parsons thing that happened last year that dominated the summer headlines before he was ultimately traded to the Packers. That's one great example, but it's not the only one. I even think back to when they moved on from Amari Cooper. Because, opposite CeeDee Lamb, because they realized they probably overspent and they needed some cap relief, and they got just a 5th-round pick back for him when they sent him to the Browns. Now you got George Pickens. He was seemingly the lightning rod that was going to attract the attention for them until he basically said, okay, that's fine. You can franchise tag me and not work on a long-term deal, and I will show up to off-season activities. And, oh, my God, the drama's gone. Where's the drama around the Cowboys? It's great when it's quiet around a team because that means that usually you're getting down to business and there's not much to worry about. That's why I think, again, this is one of those teams that a lot of people are overlooking right now because their defense is so bad. If that defense comes together, watch out.
Nick Shook is with us here on RaiderNation Radio 920. Unnecessary roughness. You mentioned the Denver Broncos, and can they do what they did last year? I wanted to ask you about the report that is out there, and I thought it was a really good report by Seth Wickersham there on ESPN, ESPN.com. A hell of a story, but it got to the point where it said that Sean Payton thought about stepping down and letting Bill Belichick be the head coach and get those 15 wins so he could pass Don Shula. Sean Payton is a control freak, like I know Sean Payton is a control freak. Do you see any way that is actually real, or is that something that's easy to say when it's all said and done, and obviously it didn't happen?
Well, I mean, obviously it didn't happen, and it's obviously an easy headline and a click grabber and everything else, so we're talking about it now. But I feel more like it was a matter of just, you ever sit back and just float some absurd ideas and propositions, knowing that, A, it's going to take too much effort to deliver on that, and B, it's kind of outrageous to begin with. It felt like that. Like it was almost just like I'm spitballing here, and I think that he deserves the opportunity, and I considered it, but like, really? Did you really? That would be so unconventional and unprecedented. And you're right, a control freak like Peyton, a guy who, his disposition isn't the sunniest on the planet. I can't imagine that would ever happen, but it did make for a good little tidbit, a little nugget that came out of that larger piece.
Nick Shook is with us here at RaiderNation Radio 920. So what do you think about the Denver Broncos, though? What is their chances? And, I mean, kind of how do you look at this AFC West when you know that Kansas City is going to be getting Mahomes back at some point? The Chargers have a new OC, and obviously everything here in Vegas with the Raiders is all brand new as well.
Yeah, and obviously it's one of the teams in your division, so, it attracts extra attention there in Vegas. Look, this fan base is not a fan of mine, and I understand why, because I was one of the last remaining skeptics regarding them because, it had nothing really to do with Bo Nix. It was the fact that this offense didn't really find its stride until the second half of the season. What they did is they played with their food in a lot of games. They couldn't find the consistency and the productivity that you need that looks like, that is the mark of a true Super Bowl contender. But they were still winning games. I think about that 13-11 win over the Jets overseas, where it's like, yeah, they found a way to win, but it was very ugly. And there's that comeback win over the Giants where they're getting dominated for most of the game and then wake up in the fourth quarter. There's the comeback win over the Eagles. Same thing. Wake up in the fourth quarter and drop a bunch of points on the Eagles. And it's like, why couldn't you do that over 4 quarters? And then they finally found that stride late in the season, and that's how they got all the way to the AFC Championship game. Unfortunately, they didn't have their quarterback healthy to try to finish that runoff by getting to the Super Bowl. So that was the reason for my skepticism last year. And I never really took them seriously until very late when everybody else had already hopped on board. But if you look at them on paper going into the season and you think that Bo Nix is going to come back healthy and everything else is going to be fine, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't see them as the favorite probably to win the division, given what they did last year. They got better at receiver by adding Jalen Waddle. I still don't feel 100% great about their running back room, but if Dobbins can actually be healthy for a full season, that would help them a lot. I felt like it was the one position that they probably could have used a little bit more attention on this past offseason. But just on paper, I mean, the defense is fantastic as well. We know how well they played last year. It's one of the most sound and well-rounded teams in the NFL. And as long as they can kind of pick up where they left off largely, I think that they're in for another fantastic season. It's just a matter of can they fight through, the number of contenders that are going to come out of not only the AFC West, but the AFC at large. Because I think the AFC West, pretty much everybody has their question marks, which is fine at this point in the season. I think most everybody has question marks in one way or another, even the Rams, because the Rams, it's like, oh, they're loaded, but can they deliver? And a lot of it obviously has to do with health. When you look at the Chargers, it's like, can you keep your offensive line healthy? Because as soon as they lost their tackles last year, they fell apart. I mean, yeah, they made the playoffs, but they were not the same team. Now, Mike McDaniel being there, I think will open up the offense and elevate it from a place that they weren't quite in the Stone Ages, but they've been stuck, an era or two behind for most of Herbert's career. I think that they're going to take a couple of steps forward, but again, it relies heavily on the health of that offensive line. The Chiefs, we know the story is Patrick Mahomes. They're still rolling out a roster that kind of reminds me of what they've done over the last few years, which is that they got the most out of an assembly of parts that if they weren't wearing, the Chiefs logo and colors, that maybe people wouldn't take them as seriously. But a lot of that had to do with Mahomes, one of the best playing quarterbacks who didn't put together the big numbers that people saw from previous years because he was just doing what it took to win football games. Relying on him and figuring out when he's going to come back is going to be a big part and a big theme in their season as well. And then you have the Raiders, so I think there's plenty of reason to be optimistic. It's just that you have to kind of temper your optimism with understanding that you're in a division that's got three teams that all have playoff ambitions and are, a few steps further down the road than the Raiders are. But it seems like, at least on paper and with what they've done this offseason, that this is the first time where you can, be happy about a little bit of stability with the Raiders right now, even if it doesn't produce the tangible results right away.
The funny thing is we've been talking about offseason additions for the Raiders and, what was really the biggest and best offseason addition that they made from your position, from the outside looking in. What would you say the best offseason addition's been?
Honestly, I mean, it's going to sound like it's cherry-picked, and that's fine, but I like the idea that Clint Kubiak went out in public and said, I need a veteran quarterback to onboard this offense. I don't want to be leaning on Fernando Mendoza right away, and then, a few days later they went and got Kirk Cousins. That was big. I think that's huge. The one that I think resonated, at least in free agency frenzy period, was, of course, Tyler Linderbaum, signing a deal that pays him $8 million more per year annually than the next highest paid center in the NFL. That's a bit of the Raider tax. Kind of illustrative of where they are as a team. And I like the way that they rebuilt their linebacking core by getting the two Georgia Bulldogs. Like, it's kind of ambitious. It's aspirational when it comes to building a roster, but I like the idea of it because this is a team that I think for the last 4 or 5 years has really relied on veteran guys that they think they could get more out of at that second level of the defense. And now they're kind of shifting back toward a relatively younger group with some cohesion from their time spent together in college and similar player profile too. So I like that as well. And it was a nice little initial first step at receiver, adding Jalen Naylor. I think they could probably still use more there. It's Cousins, it's Linderbaum, it's Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker. And if I had to choose any of them, I would probably go with Cousins just because it allows you to not force Fernando Mendoza on the field right away, which is so important, I think, for making sure that you don't break a rookie quarterback.
It's funny because that's been part of the conversation, and my guy Vinny Bonsignore is coming up in like 15 minutes, and he's been very adamant that you've got to get Fernando in. He's got to play the most of the season or else it's a wasted season, and I don't view it like that. But, I mean, is there a certain point, like a timeline, that you think Fernando has to get into the game?
I wouldn't say there's like a required timeline. I would put more as a projection. Okay. And it's got to be midway through the season, I think. I believe that it'll probably happen sooner than that. I always put it in the range of 4 to 8 weeks for Fernando to take over for Kirk, whether it's because they started poorly or they just feel like now is the time to make the change. It's got to be in that range. And if you follow, history of these situations with these, positioning the changeover from one guy to the next, most of the time that's usually how it happens. Now, Herbert's kind of an outlier because the plan wasn't to play him early in his rookie year. It's just that Tyrod Taylor, suffered a punctured lung because he got an injection in his ribs, and the injection went in too far.
Right.
I mean, he wasn't even ready to start that. Like, he wasn't told to start that day. That happened right before the game. He just found out moments before kickoff, oh, by the way, you're starting. And the rest is history with him. So, your bye isn't until week 13, and usually when you see this kind of changeover, it happens around the bye. That would be the latest I could see them making that change. Realistically, I would imagine, you go to New York and then you go to San Francisco weeks 8 and 9, you come back home versus Seattle in week 10. I mean, that's a really tough first game for a rookie to make his debut. But if he's not on the field before then, I would imagine it's in that range when he ends up on the field. And it's not because it's a wasted season or anything like that. It's just a matter of when can you onboard him and feel comfortable that he's ready to take over the reins? Not to say that he's not capable of it. It's like, what's the pressure? Like, look, growing up in Cleveland, going to a lot of Browns games when I was a kid, they couldn't wait to get Tim Couch in the field way back in the day, in place of Ty Detmer. They couldn't wait to do it with Brady Quinn over Derek Anderson. And it's fan impatience that drives that. It's usually a short-sighted and ill-advised decision to force a young guy on the field out of desperation. You want the Raiders to avoid that. And you don't want the idea of, you got to get something out of him in his rookie year to be the driving force. It's got to be measured. It's got to be made at the right time, I think.
Nick Shook, NFL.com, is with us here. Raider Nation Radio 920, Unnecessary Roughness. I hate to do this in July, but is there any coaches that you have your eye on that they better get things turned around this season, or it might be their last?
I said I hate to do this in
I
July.
hate to do it in July, but that's where we're at.
But who's on the hot seat? All right. I mean, you could just go through the standings and kind of pick and choose, right? Like Aaron Glenn, year 2. Year 1 was bad. Yeah. Year 2, he's taking over play calling duties. That defense has got to be better. And they have to be, like, you don't have to be much better than 3 wins. You got to show demonstrable progress, though. Like, you got to have one of those Eric Mangini win the last 4 games of his first season as a head coach to save his job type of run, if you have a struggle-filled season otherwise. So that's my first on that list. I mean, you had a lot of coaching changes this year, so it's difficult to necessarily go through the standings, but I think Zach Taylor's got to deliver. He's got to make the playoffs. It's remarkable that we got to 2026 and the only head coach returning in the AFC North is Zach Taylor, of all people, but that's the world we live in right now.
Exactly.
The Colts are interesting because Steichen, I think, has done a good job as a coach given the circumstances that he's had to deal with. But it also has been a team that, like, Chris Ballard's avoided getting fired a couple of times now. It's new ownership. It's kind of unpredictable when you have new ownership. So I guess keep an eye on that if things don't go well, but I think they'll be okay. Dan Quinn in Washington had a great first year, had a really rough second year. If they can't put it back together and keep Jaden Daniels healthy and find a way to extract the most production from him offensively, I think he could be somebody who's on a hot seat as well. And this is crazy, but it's kind of felt like this last year. The Packers, if the Packers take a step or two backward, which I don't think that they're going to, and they're not a franchise that makes this type of decision, but there was a weird vibe around them with the way the season ended last year. So I would just keep a bit of an eye on that situation. Oh, and of course, my not that I have a favorite of anybody who's on a hot seat, but Todd Bowles in Tampa. Todd Bowles almost got fired last year.
Yeah, that's right.
He's on a warm seat to start the season, and I'm a little concerned about what they might be able to do in what I think is the worst division in football right now. If they don't capitalize and bounce back from an 8-9 finish and failing to win the division last year, I think that's probably one of the most likely coaching changes that could happen.
I don't know why I always forget about Tampa Bay. I feel like it's just that team that we just always forget. When Mike Evans was there, I forgot about how great of a wide receiver he was. We talked about best wide receivers in the league, and he never pops up on anyone's list. And, yeah, Todd Bowles, he's definitely on the hot seat. Well, Nick, we'll close out with this. What about Nick Sirianni? What does he have to do in Philadelphia? Not that they don't have success, but, man, he burns through OCs, sometimes because they leave like Steichen and Moore to go be head coaches, but other times because it's just not working, and it feels like some part of him is just not rubbing off the right way on these other guys.
It's so funny that you went to him because if you would press me for one more candidate, that was going to be the next guy on the list. And kind of a fashion similar to LaFleur, but also very different in that, like, the way that the Packers season ended last year, there was just this weird vibe that, like, Matt LaFleur might not be long for Green Bay, that they might not be a good fit anymore. And obviously then they, turn around and agree to, like, I believe they agreed to an extension and everything else. So that's fine, right? But Sirianni is like that, but like juiced up because the way he carries himself like the former football player that he is. in a city that is not easy on their coaches, media-wise and fan base-wise. He talks, he's a bit of a loudmouth at times, and management-wise, he hasn't been the best, whether it's preventing drama from the locker room seeping out beyond it, or failing to deliver and overseeing some really terrible, just dreadful end-of-season collapses. Pretty much every odd year it happens, and then every even year they're amazing. And we're going into an even year, so maybe they'll get back on track. But, yeah, you're right. He runs through offensive coordinators. Some get jobs, and, a lot of replacements don't work. I think about John Morton in Detroit last year, a one and done after Ben Johnson went to Chicago. So, it's not just exclusive to Philadelphia, but it just seems like the vibe around the Eagles is very much like in your face, obnoxious, usually wins enough to back it up. But when it's bad, it's bad. And the level of dysfunction that has surrounded this team in those odd numbered years in which they've had these meltdowns has been so palpable that you're shocked that he's still employed, because you've seen lesser coaches or lesser franchises have shorter leashes and move on from coaches who are overseeing that sort of, dysfunctional or just kind of toxic environment. Yet he remains, of course, because he's reached 2 Super Bowls and he's won one. So it's one of those situations where last year we felt like we're on Sirianni watch, and after 2023, we were on Sirianni watch at that time as well. You hope that it doesn't happen for them this year. And maybe, moving on from A.J. Brown quells some of the locker room drama and whatnot that happened. But we've seen this happen enough every other year that it's fair to expect that something like that is going to happen again. So, look, I think he's a bit of a unique character when it comes to coaches in today's NFL. We're beyond the era of some of the most outspoken and brash coaches that we've seen in the past, and it seems like he now holds that mantle in the NFL. But he wins. I mean, they won 11 games last year, even though they didn't end very well. They looked like a bad team in the last month and a half of the season. They still won 11 games. It's hard to argue with success. So we'll see what happens with them. But he's definitely one of those ones that you always kind of keep in mind.
No doubt, no doubt. Nick Shook, NFL.com with us here, Raider Nation Radio 920. Again, your AFC North training camp preview, that's out right now. What else? You said you were going through some power rankings. What else are you working on, my man?
Yeah, I think you're going to get NFC South training camp preview maybe tomorrow or next week, and then you're going to get division power rankings next week as well.
Nice.
I believe I am now taking over power rankings this season. So Not only will you get my ranking of quarterbacks every week, you will also get my ranking of all 32 teams every week. So if I show up on your show and I sound like I haven't slept, it's probably because I haven't. So prepare for it.
Hey, I'm always prepared for it. It's all good, man. That's how we roll when it's the NFL season. You know how everything plays out and how busy it does get. But it's always great to have you on the show, my man. Thanks so much for the time. Always appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Q. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Great stuff. Nick Shook, NFL.com, with us here on Raider Nation Radio 920. And, it's so funny, hearing what Nick just had to say about the whole Cousins and Mendoza. And that's kind of the world that I'm in is, you don't have to force Mendoza out there, but you have the option to put him out there. Where others think it's got to be like Mendoza right now, or it's, not right now, obviously, when training camp starts and when the season starts, that it's got to be from the jump, or else you're holding them back. And I just don't see it that way. But like I said, I feel like there's plenty of conversation and plenty of back and forth that you can have about it. And obviously, it's going to be debated until not only does the season get started, but until Mendoza gets into the game, whenever that is, whether that's week 1, week 11, whatever the case may be, it's going to be one of those that will be highly debated. Good thing is we got Vinny Bonsignore from the California Post and Raider Nation Radio's morning tailgate coming up in about 10 minutes or so. But let's go out to the phone lines real quick at 702-365-9200 and talk to a very patient Money Mitch. Money Mitch, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Q, Ari, how you guys doing?
We're good, man. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm surprised you didn't want to challenge me in that's for swimming there, underwater especially. When you brought that up, your Hawaii experience. Anytime I'll come out there.
Sounds good. Sounds good, brother. You'll win that battle because I'm not that guy.
Oh, I win in something. And I got another bone to pick with you.
Uh-oh.
You mentioned
stand in line, brother.
Lady.
Stand in line.
You mentioned that lady, which, by the way, I think UCLA, the champs, women's, they had like 4 or 5 first-round picks in the top 15.
Yep.
Top 15.
Yeah.
Or USC will be clean up next 2 years. You watch, especially Juju. You mentioned that Las Vegas. You said West Coast. You're on the West Coast. You're not exactly by the beach. The Strip is not the beach, okay? You're close. I would consider you East Coast, okay, the best coast, but that's just me, okay? Just kidding, we really.
Bad joke.
The bad joke didn't go well, huh?
No.
I would say backfield. If you include unsigned running back, the running back that we drafted to help with Ashton Genty, and of course our great quarterback Mendoza. I think it's going to be a big difference. We're going to win more games this year. And
Okay, so you're looking at Washington and Hemby and Mendoza, just kind of including all three of those guys together?
Well, they're going to help Genty still a starter.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they're going to play two receivers. They could play two tight ends, or maybe they can play two running backs, kind of like the Bo Jackson, Marcus Allen in the backfield that we had for a split second to disaster struck. I remember that tackle against Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah. We all do. We all do.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Marcus Allen, he's one of the best Trojans ever. Thanks for taking my call. Work on that swimming, all right?
All right. I got you.
I'll give you a head start.
All right. I'll take it. I'll take that head start. I'll get my workout on when it comes to swimming. Money Mitch, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. And, that's something that Kirk Morrison brought up about the 12 personnel, 13 personnel, the 2 tight end look or the 3 tight end look. I think that you'll see more of that. It's so funny. We talked about that for I don't know how many years. We talked about, 12 personnel. Going to see a lot of that. But, with the different additions that have been made, and you think about Connor Hayward as well. You think about the, addition to him at the fullback position, but he also has the ability to catch the ball in the backfield, kind of be that U-check that is in San Francisco. Not obviously the same. He's one of the best in the business, but I think Hayward has an opportunity to do something. But as far as like biggest or best offseason additions, I wouldn't look at a backup running back, an undrafted free agent running back, and a tight end that was signed to a minimal deal to be the biggest and best offseason additions. Good additions, absolutely. I don't want to take anything away from, the players themselves, but when you're looking for the biggest and the best, there's definitely bigger names out there that they're going to have a bigger impact, like a Tyler Linderbaum, like many people have said on the text line, who touches the ball every single play, right? Ideally, he touches the ball every single play. He's healthy all 17 games. Even more if the Raiders earn extra games this season, that'd be great, right? And he's there, and he ends up being that Pro Bowl center, that All-Pro center, whatever you want to call it. It would be great to see 2 or 3 guys along that offensive line become Pro Bowlers or All-Pro. That means that things went pretty well for the Raiders in 2026. But again, you got to be able to walk before you can run. So you got to start to put the pieces together, and that's what they're doing. And obviously at the end of the month, when training camp gets rolling, that's when all the pieces will definitely start to come together, and we'll start to see what it's looked like as they get ready for the upcoming season. We want to hear from you at 702-365-9200. Hit up the text line. Let us know what you think the biggest and best offseason additions were for the Raiders and why. And we got our guy. We'll ask him this question and more. Vinny Bonsignore, he joins us next. It's RaiderNation Radio 920.
I never thought when they revamped the kickoff rules that it was going to have as big of an impact as it has on now. There are special teams people that are using it to their advantage. We saw kickoff returns and punt returns last year. You don't see them all that often, but they've happened. And look, even to the Raiders last year, they marched down the field, scored a touchdown, kickoff return for a touchdown. Huh? What the hell happened? And look, all 3 phases matter in their own way. Special teams, their value, either flipping the field or coming through when you need it, clutch kick to win the football game.
It's unnecessary roughness. Let's go inside the huddle with Vinny Bonsignore, sponsored by Dos Caras Tequila and presented by the Realty One Group.
And as we come into the sounds of Big Lincoln Kennedy on the Raider Squad Show, that's a guy that I know Vinny Bonsignore would have no problem being in the huddle with, because who wouldn't want to be in the huddle with a blocker like Lincoln Kennedy, one of the best to do it, and obviously silver and black royalty, talking about special teams and the impact of the kickoff rules. And that was really a conversation that we had this morning about the fact that the Raiders haven't had an impact special teams return game, right? We talk about it all the time, lack of kickoff threat, punt returner threat. They just haven't had that, and hopefully they're able to find that. It's been far too long since the Raiders have had that part of their team going in that direction. We always talk about 3 areas of the team: offense, defense, and special teams. But the phase that when you talk about special teams and the return game, it's just not there. Kickoff, punt, field goal, that's great, right? But man, that return game just has not been there. Vinny Bonsignore, he does join us now here to talk all things silver and black. And Vinny, thanks so much for your time. Definitely appreciate you. Do you think that the Raiders have maybe with Joe DeCamillis now as the special teams coordinator, and they've brought in some other guys, maybe even Benson, who they drafted in the 6th round out of Oregon. Do you think they have a guy on the roster currently that could be a threat from either the punt return or kick return game?
Yeah, I think Trey Tucker has done a pretty decent job as a punt returner. I like the idea of a Malik Benson. He has to make the team, obviously, first and foremost, for that to happen. I do think, and that's, as we watch training camp, Q, I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but I think both of us enjoy watching, those players, and you get a pretty good sense early on of who can handle the assignment and who you're like, you might want to just go stay over there at cornerback.
Yeah.
Because it's no joke. I mean, the first and foremost is literally controlling the ball, right? And that can be so frustrating sometimes because you see somebody who, once the ball is actually in his hands, he can make things happen. But holding on to the ball is a real issue, and I was up in Seattle when the Rams essentially lost the NFC Championship game on a muff punt. In their red zone, very next play, Seattle scores a touchdown. That became the difference of the game. And special teams itself is such an important part of the game, and I think it's something that the Raiders have an intention of fixing. But to answer your question, I'm curious to see who that is ultimately going to be, and I think it's going to be wide open in a way that it hasn't been wide open in the last couple of years.
Well, one more with special teams before we move on to the real good stuff, Fernando Mendoza and Kirk Cousins. I did want to ask you because Paul Gutierrez brought this up the other day about an under-the-radar storyline for training camp. Could be the battle between the Tokyo Toe and Matt Gay. Do you think that there's a competition there between those two guys?
I think there has to be,
Okay.
because I just Matt Gay just hasn't been very good in a while, and we saw how important special teams was last year. They lost a couple of games because of special teams. We see that across the league and how that could be the difference in winning games and not. It's such a fine line in the NFL. We know that with the with how close games are. So. I think Special K is going to be given every opportunity to win that job, and I don't think that the Raiders would bat an eye whatsoever if he turned out to be that guy. Now he's going to have to earn it. I think Matt Gay, for the ups and downs that he has, there's still some certainty that he brings. He's a veteran. He's been there, done that, has worked with his special teams coach before, but I don't think you bring two kickers into training camp and take up a spot on your roster. On your 90-man roster, I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but that roster spot could be used for other parts of your team rather than a kicker if you don't have a serious intention to say this is an open job and somebody's going to have a chance to win this. So just the fact that they are bringing two kickers in and have a roster spot right now for Special K, to me, indicates that they are open to see how that goes and very open to whoever wins it gets the job.
It's so funny because I just kind of thought it was a foregone conclusion that they were probably going to find a way to stash him on IR and maybe he'll be ready, next year or something. I kind of thought that this would be, maybe the Matt Gay year. I know he's long in the tooth and that he, like you said, he hasn't been great, but I thought that they were going to kind of thug it out with him this year. But the more and more I think about it, it does make sense to have that competition that you're talking about. Again, Vinny Bonsignore is with us here, RaiderNation Radio 920. Now, this morning, I heard you and Clay, and I've heard you before, be very adamant about Fernando Mendoza and the plan for him, and you guys were having a really good conversation. And the reason I know it's a good conversation is because I was talking to the radio in response. And so whenever you start talking, whenever you're sitting in the car talking to the radio by yourself, you know that there's a good conversation going on. And, from what I heard, it sounded like, you were very adamant that the Raiders need to get Mendoza into action sooner rather than later so they don't waste his rookie year. And all I kept saying back to the radio was, but what's the rush? What's the rush? So I just wanted to give you time to be able to clarify or make me understand what you were talking about.
Yeah, I think the rush is well, first of all, what would be the fear? What's the apprehension? Because that's the first thing that I need to know. Like, why are you not playing him? Is it because he's not ready and you think that you literally are rushing him? Or is it because right off the bat you're saying, hey, I just think that this is the better approach, and so whatever he does in training camp doesn't matter. I'm going to hold him back and let Kirk Cousins start the season first. That's what I think is the mistake. I think if you marry yourself to that type of a thinking where philosophically we just believe that this is the best thing to do, and so therefore no matter what we see in training camp, we're not going to play the rookie quarterback right off the bat. That's what I think would be a waste, and I do think that it would be a waste if he doesn't play and play significantly in year one, because I just feel like you learn more by actually playing. And why put that off till next year? You might say, well, that worked for Patrick Mahomes. Okay, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs had playoff aspirations in his rookie year. He wasn't brought in to be the starter, to be the savior or anything like that right then and there. They had a capable quarterback. Alex Smith was a fine quarterback, and they were a playoff team, and they remained a playoff team with Alex Smith. So their expectations for themselves as a team was, we drafted Patrick Mahomes to be the quarterback down the road, but we still want to make the playoffs this year because we are a playoff team. When the Packers drafted Aaron Rodgers, it wasn't like they were desperate at quarterback. They were a playoff team with Brett Favre as their quarterback. They didn't need Aaron Rodgers for that particular first year. They still had aspirations and expectations of making the playoffs. When I look at the Raiders, I just don't see that there shouldn't be expectations about the playoffs. They're not a playoff team. They're coming off 3 wins last year and 4 wins the year before. So unless you get to the end of training camp and you go, we're way ahead of where we thought. We actually think that with Kirk Cousins and with what we've built here, we could go knock on the playoff door. I'm all for that. If that's what their honest opinion is of themselves, then I'm okay with that. But I don't know that that's what they're going to find out about themselves or believe about themselves come the end of training camp. So if the expectations are still, this is the stepping stone type season, this is a development season, kind of a transition to a new foundation and creating that foundation, why don't you just get the rookie quarterback out there as well to be to help expedite all of that, rather than wait until 2027 to get him out there and face the same learning curve in 2027 that he's going to experience in 2026.
Vinny Bonsignore is with us here at RaiderNation Radio 920, making a very good argument for Fernando Mendoza to get into action early and often here on Unnecessary Roughness. And Vinny, my only thing is, and I've thrown this out there to Raider Nation before, do you want the guy that gives you the best chance to win, or do you want Fernando Mendoza, right? And that it might be the same answer. If Fernando Mendoza very easily could give him the best chance to win coming out of training camp, I've been all in the camp of whoever is the best guy in camp, let him go out there and play. Because I think this organization not only needs to make sure that Fernando Mendoza learns the ropes of the NFL, they also need to learn how to win. This organization hasn't done a lot of winning in the last handful of years.
Yeah, I agree with you. And if you get to the end of training camp and it's decidedly so, Kirk Cousins gives you the best chance not only to win, just to be competitive, then yeah, that to me that would be a pretty easy choice. However, I would still hope at some point you get Fernando out there for a significant amount of time again to expedite that learning curve. Now, however, if Kirk goes out there and they're winning left and right and they're in a good position come October and into November, you keep rolling with it until there's nothing left to roll with. But we'll see if that were to happen. I don't know. I just get this feeling that there's this presumption that the decision that the Raiders are going to make is play Fernando Mendoza and live through the ups and downs, as opposed to Kirk Cousins is going to get you 9 to 10 wins. Where I don't know where that notion came from.
Right.
Like that's the decision, right? That's not the decision. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I got you on that. Yeah. Because I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many wins the Raiders are going to get, period. Whether it's Cousins, Mendoza, O'Connell, combination of the three. Like, I don't know how many wins this team is going to get this year, period.
Yeah, what would be more valuable to you? 7 wins with Fernando Mendoza, which would be a 4-game improvement from last year, or 9 wins from Kirk Cousins. With like that's the end of the line with Kirk Cousins. It's not like he's going to be your quarterback in 2027. What do you feel would be more valuable for the young quarterback, the young team, the development of the team in that kind of scenario?
See, and that's a great question, because I feel like the 9 wins, I know that Cousins not long-term answer for Fernando, but I think that those 9 wins this team needs. Like, I think the players in the locker room, like, I think Max Crosby needs 9 wins. I think, you know what I mean? Like, is Max going to want to stick around for, well, we developed our quarterback and we got 5 wins, or we got 6 wins. And again, Cousins don't guarantee 9 wins. Cousins might get 3 wins. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, we just don't know. So it's hard. I don't want to put a total on it. I just want to see whoever can help this team win, not just for the sake of the quarterback growing, but for the team to grow.
Yes, I agree with that. I brought up Derek Carr. His rookie year, they were 3-13. Second year, 7-9. Third year, they were 12-3, and we all know how that ended. It wasn't because Derek Carr ran out of gas; he got hurt.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you never know what would have happened. And I would love the next time I see Derek, I'm going to literally ask him this question: what would have been more beneficial if you had to do it all over again? Playing that 3-13 season, which there were all kinds of ups and downs. He completed under 60% of the pass. By the way, that was the only time in his career where he failed to reach 60% or better in passing completions. So it wasn't a great year, but it was I think it had to have been a beneficial year. The next year they improved by 4 wins, and then they improved by 5 wins the next year after that. And I have to believe, maybe I'm silly, all right? Maybe I'm naive, but I have to believe that it all led to that point. Like that first year and all the experiences that he lived through helped him into year 2, and then year 2 into year 3. And then, unfortunately, he got hurt. Who knows what would have happened? But if I could tell you, Q, this is what it's going to be. It's going to go here to all of a sudden in year 3.
Yeah.
You're looking at an MVP caliber quarterback, because that's what Derek Carr was that year.
Yeah.
And a chance to make some real noise in the playoffs. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
it's hard to argue with. It's hard to argue with. You know, you make up a good point, and I'll tell you, I'm glad you brought that up, because Derek Carr's rookie year, from a fan standpoint, I'll take off my professional headset, and I'll just tell you from a fan standpoint. I think we were all pounding the table for please have Carr in there, because Schaub, I think we all realized he was shot. Like, his arm was awful. He had just had that terrible run there in Houston, where even in Houston they were trying to run him out of town. They had a restaurant that was selling the pick six, because remember he sold he did all those pick sixes, and yeah, so it's like they were trying to run him out of town, and when the Raiders signed him, I was like, I don't know about that.
Right.
And so when Carr was drafted, I was like, okay, great. I know that he could play, and so I was hoping that he was going to get the job, and it took that 4th preseason game for him to actually earn that job. But I could see the argument if I take off my, like I said, professional headset and just be a fan. I kind of understand even more where you're coming from.
Yeah, and I mean, if this was a good team, if this was a team that, in somehow, some way the Raiders had lucked into the first pick, maybe they traded for it or whatever, they had somebody else's pick, and this was a team that, hey, this is really a playoff team. They got the number 1 pick because the team that they traded with in the last draft, had a bad season and finished with the top pick. Lucky to get Fernando Mendoza. Don't need Fernando Mendoza right now. This is a playoff team. Let's let him sit behind Kirk Cousins. But that isn't what the situation is. It's more like the situation that Derek came into his rookie year, where there really weren't. I forgot what happened in the year before. I can't imagine that. I mean, they obviously had a high pick in the second round, so that means they probably weren't a very good team the year before. Which is why they had a high
they were awful.
pick. Okay.
They were awful.
Which is what the Raiders were last year, right? Awful.
Yeah.
It's why they had the first pick overall.
Right.
So that's kind of the model that I would be looking at. And, of course, Derek went out there and showed that that he was Matt Schaub also didn't play well, so that contributed to it. But also Derek did play well in the preseason. Now, did that set up a great year for him? No, it was actually kind of a learning year, and it wasn't a great year for the team. But there was, again, to me anyway, some benefit to all that in the team building and the development of Derek Carr. And it was all, better the next couple of years up until, like we said, 12-3. In year 3, I think every Raider fan would take that. Like, hey, if you want to take your lumps this year with Fernando, get him ready, go all through all the the ups and downs, the learning curve. It doesn't have to be that way either. Maybe they have a good season with him as the quarterback. I'm not going to rule that out. But still, there was benefit to me for Derek in that first year, struggles and all. And it helped set him up for some improvement in year 2, and then a real improvement. You're talking about, like we said, an MVP caliber quarterback by year 3. Unfortunately for him, his whole career, the trajectory of his career changes on a fluke play.
4-12 in 2013. Derek Carr obviously gets drafted in the second round in 2014. Quarterbacks, Terrell Pryor, Matt McGloin. Those were the QBs that the Raiders rolled out there. And McFadden was still part of the team, but Rod Streeter was one of their wide receivers. Denarius Moore was one of their receivers. Jennings was one of their receivers. Andre Holmes was part of their receiving core. It was not a very good squad, Vinny, just to say the least.
It wasn't, and you know what else we could say that we can also say about that season was, even as bad as it was. And I'm sure I think I remember I was at the Buffalo game. Didn't they beat Buffalo on a I think it might have been his last game of the rookie year for Derek Carr, or down the stretch of his rookie year. Anyway,
they won 26-24. Yep.
There you go. And but even in a bad situation, you just named the players. Aside from McFadden, it was who and what. So it wasn't a really good team. But did it break Derek Carr?
Right.
Did all the struggles and the losing? They were a worse team that year than they were the year before. They won 4 games the year before. Then they won. It was 3 wins. I think.
They won 3 wins in 2014. They started out 0-10 until they got that Thursday night victory against Kansas City when Latavius Murray really took over.
Right.
I mean, Latavius Murray damn near ran for as many yards as Carr threw for in that game when they won 24-20 on Thursday night football.
And look, sometimes you got to take a little step back to take a step forward too. So, and I think with Fernando as the quarterback, I think this team in and of itself is better than that 2013 Raiders team. The names that you were, I think there's, the moves that John Spytek and the roster that they've put together, I think is further along the line than it was, in Derek's rookie year. So that would bode even better for having a rookie quarterback. But even if it's like I said, a struggle, there's merit in that, because you're learning on the job. And I think that's what this should all be about. And I'm not discounting the notion of, or the importance of winning. I just don't know that that's what we're trading off. Like we're saying, no, okay, well, I guess you're turning your back on 10 wins. Am I? I don't know if Kirk Cousins
we have
is
no
capable
idea.
of doing that. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
No, I love it. I think it's a hell of a conversation. It really is. And like I said, I mean, Derek Carr's rookie year, 3-13, right? And then he went on, and like you said, year 3, he's up to 12 wins, and the Raiders are right there. And we all know what happened on that Christmas Eve there at the Coliseum against the Indianapolis Colts. That was a game that I was in attendance to, and was not a very good day leaving the Coliseum, that's for sure. Well, Vinny, you mentioned the offseason moves that have been made, and it's funny, it leads into, and we'll close out with this, is actually the conversation we've had on the show today. What do you think the best offseason move has been for the Raiders? What offseason addition have they made that you think was the biggest or the best?
Well, taking the coach out of it, because I think
that was my answer, Clint Kubiak.
Yeah, and because that is. I mean, and it's not just Clint, but it's the offensive line coach. There's a lot of good that came out of just hiring Clint Kubiak and his Rolodex and the people that he brought with him, which, by the way, are guys that he's been coaching with now for a long period of time. They're not getting thrown together.
Right.
These guys speak the same language. They're have chemistry amongst themselves. So take that and set it aside. I think Tyler Linderbaum is going to make play such an important role on this offensive line. Is he the right center for every team out there? No, but is he the perfect? I mean perfect center for the type of offense that Clint Kubiak wants to run? 1,000%, he is. I have a hard time believing, Q. Honestly, I have a hard time believing that this isn't going to be a more than respectable offensive line. I think Rick Dennison and Clint Kubiak and Tyler Linderbaum and the return of Colton Miller are going to get this thing pointed in the right direction finally. And that is going to be a game changer, because now all of a sudden Ashton Jeanty, we talked about on the morning show going on that 2016 Rams team, and Todd Gurley had 278 carries. There might have been 277 carries. For less than 1,000 yards, 3.2 yards per carry. The very next year, he had one more carry, and but the yards per average went up from 3.2 to 4.7, 4.6. Wow. All of a sudden, that 800, 900 yards became 1,300 yards. He also caught a bunch of passes. And look, what did they do on the offensive line? They hired Aaron Cromer, a fantastic offensive line coach, and obviously McVay. They brought in Andrew Whitworth, who's, to me, kind of the equivalent of what Tyler Linderbaum is going to be for the Raiders, even though Linderbaum is 10 years younger than Andrew was. But that's the effect that Andrew Whitworth had on that offensive line. and all of a sudden Todd Gurley, i.e. Ashton Genty, you don't have to give the ball to Ashton Genty not even one more time. I think he will get more than 266 rushes, but even if he doesn't and he just takes the 3.7 to a 4.6, which I think is fully capable of him if the offensive line and everybody else does that job, then that kind of a jump from 900 to 1,300 is there for Ashton Genty. And I'll say this about Ashton, as I said about Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley did not become a better player from 2016. Like, he didn't magically become a better player. He always had been a really good player. He needed offensive line and help and play scheming and play calling, and that's what Ashton, when he goes for his 1,300 yards, knock on wood for him that he gets that, it's not going to be because Ashton Genty was a better player or woke up, one morning a better football player than he was the year before. It's going to be because of play calling, scheming, and offensive line being better. And if that happens, then a lot is out there for Ashton Genty.
Hey man, you hit you're doing the Lord's work, I should say, out there, man. You're doing, singing the gospel right there. Fantastic stuff, fantastic breakdown, hell of a conversation. Love it, man. I love it. What are you working on, Vinny, that we should be on the lookout for?
I just did it's going to be posting here in the next couple of days, but it was a breakdown on the top offenses ranking the offenses that the Raiders are playing, and something very, very interesting. They play some powerful offenses this year. They play the Rams, they play, the 49ers, they play teams, the Chargers. There's some teams that they play with some excellent offenses. But I want to say they also play offenses that ranked four of the bottom 6 offenses in the NFL, and a few that were just a little bit higher. So there's about 6-7 games out there that, based on the other team's offense, and you're talking about the Cardinals, you're talking about the Browns, there's some real bad offenses that they're playing this year. Now, things change from one year to the next, but I didn't see a whole lot of change in a lot of these offenses to saying, okay, that's a totally different story this year compared to last year. There's an opportunity, I think, for the Raiders this year, honestly, to get that 7-win mark based on. We talk about the top heaviness of the schedule, and it is. They play it's a gauntlet. But there's also some winnable games out there against some offenses that struggled to score some points. Now, granted, the Raiders had the worst offense, so of those worst 6 offenses, they're one of them, and they were literally the worst. But I don't think that that's going to be the case again this year, and I don't necessarily think that a lot of those other teams improved that much. A few of them are still looking for their quarterback, so there's an opportunity just based on, like the Browns. You look at some of these bad offenses that the Raiders play this year, that there's an opportunity to win some more games.
Fantastic stuff. Great breakdown, man. We ought to do a show together or something. That was really good stuff.
Yeah, I'm all for it. You know that.
Vinny, great stuff as always, man. Thanks so much. Definitely appreciate you, brother.
All right, man. Take care. Have a great show.
All right, my man. Will do. Vinny Bonsignore, California Post, RaiderNation Radio, 920's Morning Tailgate. And sorry, Ari, we crushed the clock. I apologize for that, but that was a fantastic conversation. Little back and forth, just proving the fact that we can have a good back and forth, intelligent conversation without getting our feelings hurt. We hear from you as we kick off hour number 3. We'll do that next here on RaiderNation Radio, 920.
Kind of a football robot in a good way. He's a football robot from heaven. He's a Cadillac out there. We got to get the most out of Brock. Wherever he goes, he's been successful in college and high school, whoever's coached him. So just can't say enough great things about him. Love his work ethic. He's a standard bearer.
Right now, we're doing football right on Unnecessary Roughness. Brought to you by Meineke, doing car care right.
Kicking off hour number 3 of the show as we do football right here. We come into the sounds of Clint Kubiak talking about Brock Bowers being a football robot. And it's funny because Clint Kubiak, as he's describing Brock as a football robot, sounds like a football robot, right? It sounds like he is absolutely locked in as a football robot, and in the most respectful way, he is. He's a football dude. I say it all the time. I was talking earlier in the show about JT getting an opportunity to sit down with Coach each and every week, as he does with every coach every year. And as long as you're talking football, you're going to get some good stuff from Clint Kubiak. Look, just even him talking about Brock Bowers as a football robot, that just showed some of his personality. It wasn't some overwhelming personality, but it shows some of his personality and what he'll bring to the table when you start talking ball with him. So I mentioned earlier in the show, I look forward to those conversations throughout the course of the year. I think we're really going to learn some things. But that's just funny the way he described Brock Bowers. It is Unnecessary Roughness here on RaiderNation Radio 920. And as you can imagine, we're going to talk about Brock Bowers as we do football right now. We do want to hear from you at 702-365-9200. Don't forget, we got Mariah Janos, Fox 5 Sports, joining us coming up in about 25 minutes or so, talking all things Las Vegas Aces. Summer League action's going on right now at the Thomas and Mack as well, at the Warriors and the Mavericks squaring up against each other. So that's on my screens here. And, we'll have plenty of representation there at Summer League the next few weeks. JT will have his show come live from there. And then also our sister station, ESPN Las Vegas, will be at the Thomas and Mack as well. But do want to hear from you. What do you think the biggest and best offseason additions were made by the Raiders and why? I talked about Clint Kubiak, Vinny Bonsignore, who we just had on, talked about Tyler Linderbaum. There's been others that have had other different suggestions and bringing different thoughts to the conversation, and we do encourage you to do that at 702-365-9200. Real quickly, before we get to Brock Bowers, I did want to address Eric's text. He was responding to the conversation that me and Vinny had in the last hour, and it was a really good conversation. He said if the Raiders were running this offense the last few years, then it would be a different story. That was the part of the conversation where we were talking about Fernando Mendoza and Kirk Cousins and who should be in the action. And then he finished up the conversation by saying, can't compare to Todd Gurley, who's 6'1". So obviously Todd Gurley is a lot taller than Ashton Genty is. But to Vinny's point, he was saying that the offensive line play got a lot better for Todd Gurley in year 2, and you saw his production go up. So he was saying, I don't think Ashton Genty needs to have more touches in 2026. Better offensive line play is going to take his average from 3.6 to potentially 4.6 or 4.2 or 4.3, and that's going to help as well. It doesn't necessarily mean you need more carries. You just need better carries. And it wasn't Ashton's fault that he was getting hit immediately as soon as he got the ball. So I thought that was a good point that he brought up, but I do understand where you're coming from, Eric, with his size, and you're just kind of talking about the wear and tear and the durability. But, his rookie year, Ashton proved to be pretty durable. Now, we know how the running back position is, but I get it. Really good thought, and definitely do appreciate you chiming in on the text line. Now, I do want to get into Brock Bowers, and as we do football right, brought to you by Meineke Car Care. The reason we wanted to bring up Brock Bowers is because CBS Sports put out a ranking, the NFL's top 25 players aged 25 and under for 2026. So coming in at number 11 was Brock Bowers. They said he was hampered by injuries in 2025, but he still has a claim as the NFL's top tight end. And I'll stop right there. He, no doubt about it, does. We spent a lot of time this week talking about Jeremy Fowler from ESPN and his top 10 rankings when he talks to execs and scouts and coaches. And guess what's coming out tomorrow? The tight ends. So guess who's going to be listed very highly on that top 10 tight end list? This dude that we're talking about right now, Brock Bowers. If he's not 1, he'll be 2 or 3. And the only reason he'd be, in my opinion, just my humble opinion, 2 or 3 is because he had a down year last year due to injury. He played 12 games last season. They go on to say on CBS Sports, the Raiders pass catcher set a career high with 7 receiving touchdowns and nearly matched his yards per reception average from his illustrious rookie season when he had 10.7 in 2024 versus 10.6 in 2025. Bowers is the first tight end since Jeremy Shockey in 2002 and 3 to make the Pro Bowl in each of his first 2 seasons and has the 3rd most receiving yards by a tight end through his first 2 seasons in NFL history. With Fernando Mendoza installed as Las Vegas quarterback of the future and Clint Kubiak hired as the head coach, Bowers has a supporting cast to reach even greater heights. So that's why we wanted to bring up Brock Bowers. And just like Ashton Genty, I think that Bowers is in line for a really good season, right? Obviously, everything has to come together. The offensive line has to be, first and foremost. It doesn't matter about the bells and whistles. If the offensive line is not in place, none of the bells and whistles are going to matter. But those two dudes are going to benefit so much, Ashton Genty and Brock Bowers. And it's funny, on this top 25, age 25 and under, Ashton Genty just missed the list. They have a part that says toughest cut. Ashton Genty was part of the toughest cut. So he didn't quite make it. Obviously, he didn't have the rookie season that a lot of people expected him to have. And we talked about that, glowingly here on the show. But they identified him as well, but they just said that was a tough cut for every reason that we've mentioned multiple times. But those two dudes really have a chance to be big time players, and Bowers in particular, man. I mean, I know the Raiders don't have a number 1 wide receiver. I get that. I know that's something that everyone has been saying forever. You got to go get a number 1 wide receiver. Got to go get a number 1 wide receiver. And Kirk Morrison brought up the great point earlier this week. Like, the Chiefs don't have a number 1 wide receiver. They haven't had a number one wide receiver since Tyreek Hill left. Their number one pass catcher is their tight end, Travis Kelce. He was their number one pass catcher a year ago. Even in a year where he was kind of quiet. I didn't really think a whole lot of what Travis Kelce did. But then again, you're talking about a 6-win team, right? And Mahomes still played most of the season. I know he ended the season on IR when he tore his ACL, but he still played the majority of the year. And they still were only a 6-win team. What did he play, 14 games? I believe he played 14 out of 17. They still only won 6 games, so they weren't very good even when he was in there last year. But they have been good without that number one wide receiver. And I'm not saying that the Raiders aren't going to address that position at some point. They very easily could. But what my argument has been all year has been just see what you have. Like Jeremy Fowler, when he joined the show this week, he said, one of those two dudes have to hit. And what he was talking about was Jack Bech or Dante Thornton. You don't have to have both of those guys hit and be big-time playmakers. One of those two guys have to hit. You have to be able to get some production out of one of the two. And obviously when you draft Bech in round number 2, you want him to hit. So he's going to have an opportunity, especially when he puts his pads on. Hitting is what he likes to do. He likes to be physical. So he's going to have the opportunity to do that. Dante Thornton's going to be able to have the opportunity to go out there and show his worth as well. But there's no doubt that the number one target is going to be Brock. And if you can have a run game, that's worth the salt, then all of a sudden teams have to make a decision. Are we going to double up on Brock? Are we going to try to crowd the box? What is going to hurt us more? Brock or Ashton? And it might make things way easier on Ashton because they might just say, you know what? We'll take our chances with that dude. We just don't want Brock to miss prime. We don't want Brock to miss prime to beat us. They very easily could make that decision and say, all right, we're going to shade him. We're going to make sure that we have all eyes and all attention on him. And if Ashton just happens to go off for $130 or $150, we'll just try to keep him out the end zone. That you're going to have to – they'll have to make decisions. Defenses and defensive coordinators will have to make business decisions. But, Brock Bowers has got to be happy about everything that the Raiders have done. What we've been talking about on the show, all the offseason additions, because it's only going to make him and should put him in a better position to succeed, just like it should put Ashton Jeanty in a better position to succeed. And just like on yesterday we talked about, it should help Max Crosby be in a better position to succeed as well. A lot of really good off-season additions. So just wanted to bring that to the table. CBS Sports, again, the top 25 players aged 25 and under. Brock Bowers comes in at number 11.
Doing football right on Unnecessary Roughness. Brought to you by Meineke. Doing car care right.
702-365-9200. Remember, Mariah Janos, Fox 5 Sports, joins us coming up in about 15 minutes or so. Let's go out to L.A. I haven't talked to my guy in a minute. Eddie in L.A., welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
What's up, Q? Man, I got to say, I miss you, brother. I miss you not being on the radio, man. It's like walking through the desert without water. I'm glad to have you back. Thank you for everything you do. Just want to say that. For you and Ari, man, you guys make the afternoon go so a hell of a lot smoothly. And so in the mornings when I hear your podcast. So keep doing what you're doing, brother. But I want to talk about all this talk about starting Mendoza right away, this and that we got to put him out there if he's the one that he's going to be. What does it make? The difference is it's huge. We have to accept the fact this is a brand new team. We got a brand new coaching staff on both sides of the ball, two brand new schemes on both sides of the ball. We don't know as of yet how the running game is going to be, how the tight ends are going to be used, how the defensive scheme is going to react. All those things, there's too many variables for us to come out right off the gate and say Mendoza has to start. No, man, Mendoza doesn't have to start. We know they have the number one pick. We don't know what we have on defense. Everybody's got to take a chill, relax. Look what we did last year. We were all expecting to have more than 7 games. Man, that was a desert in trying to win games. So we got to be a little bit more patient in what we have in front of us. Understand that this team is not. Yeah, we don't have a number one wide receiver, but hey, like I said, we got to find out what we really have in this offense with the players we do have and the offense and the wide receivers that they drafted a couple years ago. We have wide receivers. We just don't know if they're any good because the offense was so bad last year. Come on, Raider Nation, stay up, baby.
Hey, great call. And mic drop right there from Eddie in L.A. Really good to hear from you again, my man. Do appreciate that. And, yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at. And I thought that the conversation that we had with Vinny, and that's why I wanted to bring it to the table because he was having a really good conversation this morning on the morning tailgate. I think that's fair, right? I think it's a fair conversation. if the Raiders, to Eric's point on the text line, if the Raiders were running this offense the last few years, then it'd be a different story. Maybe throwing Mendoza in there, but everything is brand new. And when you talk about winning games, what's more important, to try to win 9 games with Kirk Cousins, or maybe you'll end up only winning 7 with Fernando Mendoza? I think there's so much that goes into it. I think it's more than just that. That just seems like it's basic math, like 1 + 1 = 2. But in this scenario with the Raiders and the way that they're trying to build this culture, I think everything is important for everyone. And what I mean by that is you need to see the ball go through the hoop a couple times. You need to get a couple wins. You need to get or have some success, right? Everyone on this team is searching for the same thing. What? Success. Nobody's had enough success, right? Max Crosby hasn't had enough success, right? You think he wants to just say, well, let's just roll out Mendoza and, get him to let him take his lumps early because, hey, next year he's going to be a lot better. Max is like, I need to win right now. And I'm not saying that the Raiders are going to go win 10, 11, 12 games to go to the playoffs and make a deep run, but if the players in that locker room feel like a guy is out there and he doesn't give them the best chance to win, they're not going to be happy. I guess that's the best way to put it, right? I mean, as we talk this out, sometimes you got to talk these situations out loud to be able to come up with a conclusion. I think maybe that's the best way to do it. If the guys in that locker room don't think the guy that gives them the best chance to win football games is under center, they're going to be upset. I don't think that too many people can argue with that. Like, if there's an argument to go against that, please tell me what it is. Really, seriously. And this is not to be combative. This is not, I'm not trying to, be the tough guy on the block. I'm not saying that at all. I just think that if I'm in that locker room, I try to put myself in a position so I can, just be as relatable as possible. If I'm in that locker room and we're rolling out there to go play and Ari's behind center, I'm not feeling good about it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not. I'm like, that's not going to work.
Me neither.
Now, if there's a guy that I've seen in practice every single day, and every single day he's out there working his tail off and maybe working a little bit after practice, and, what I see in practice, like, man, this guy's got it, or I'm standing on the sideline like, man, this guy's, okay, I see. And I'm ready to go, and I think that he can help me win games. I'm going to do that. But all these players want to win. Like, Quay Walker didn't sign up to be a Raider free agent so he could see Fernando Mendoza develop. He came to the Raiders to try to win games. Nakobe Dean came to the Raiders to try to win games. Tyler Linderbaum took the free agent deal to be that anchor of the Raiders' offensive line to help them win games. So that's where it kind of gets lost in the sauce for me. But then Vinny brings up a good point about, 9 wins or 7 wins. No wins are guaranteed. None. There's not one player that the Raiders could roll out there week 1 against the Miami Dolphins and that's going to guarantee a win. There's not. They've got to go out there and earn it. They've got to go out there and earn every single win. Like he referenced Derek Carr's rookie year. Yeah, they won 3 games. They were 0-10 to start the season. I remember that season like it was yesterday. 0-10. I remember that first win that they got, Thursday Night Football, when the whole world was introduced to Latavius Murray. Or everybody who's watching Thursday Night Football at least was. RaiderNation sure was. Right? That was the guy that really took over. And, again, I mean, he damn near had as many yards rushing as Derek Carr had throwing. And, again, like I told Vinny, as a fan, I remember that preseason. I was like, man, this quarterback position doesn't look good. And I knew Derek Carr was sitting behind Schaub. In that 4th preseason game against Seattle, when Seattle had just a couple of the starters in there, I think Sherman played maybe a couple possessions, and he looked pretty good. And I was like, yep, go ahead and put him out there. But I didn't really feel like that the Raiders had too many options at that point. I think, and I could be wrong, I feel like that they do have options this year. And that the number 1 option might end up being the number 1 overall pick. They might get to that training camp. They might get through preseason and say, hey, man, it's pretty clear the best guy for the job is Mendoza. And then there's a chance that they don't. So that's why I'm not in a big hurry. But, I mean, I did think that the argument that Vinny made, it wasn't even an argument, just the conversation, the points that he made, that's probably the better way to put it. I think that was fair. I really do, and that's why that's obviously going to be a huge storyline, not only for us, but for the National Football League as well. We do want to hear from you at 702-365-9200. Sir Whiskey Ray said, hey, Q and Ari, let's all go swimming. Trust us, we'll take good care of you, too. Sincerely, Baywatch, Twin Peaks lifeguards, and Damon in his one-piece swimsuit. There you go. Sir Whiskey Ray's always got a funny, man. I like it. Good stuff. Rob in Oakland always has a good feedback as well. He said, not every quarterback repetition is of equal value. If you're a rookie quarterback in your first few starts, you have to know the playbook, call the play, line everyone up. Line everyone up. Sorry, Rob, this text line is messing with me. Line everyone up, make the pre-snap reads, get players in motion, handle the snap, go through the progressions, and then deliver the ball. That's a valuable rep. Doing all of that only to have multiple defensive linemen chasing you down is not a valuable rep. The only way I start Fernando in game one is if his head and shoulders better than Cousins. If it's close, I still start Cousins for 6 to 8 games. I want the rebuild offensive line to gel before putting Fernando behind them so he can get valuable reps, not empty ones. I bet Carr learned some things starting out 3-13, but he also took 24 sacks and many more pressures. Those lessons are not the ones that improve processing and quarterback execution. It's Robin Oakland. Man, I'll tell you, Ari, sometimes I love our text line. But every once in a while, this damn thing, man, the part that's the hardest is that half the word will be on one line, and then the rest of the word will be on the other line.
Yes, and it's never remotely close to, I don't know how to explain. It's never in the right place, so to speak. It's always the hardest split.
Right.
Like
so
one
then,
letter and then a bunch.
So then I sound like I can't read
Yes.
because I'm up here trying to piece together 2 lines, but it happens. But to your point, there is a lot that goes into every single rep as a quarterback, and that's something that has to be learned, that has to be understood. And I know, part of Vinny's point is, is he going to learn better by doing it in live action, or is he going to get better by observing? And I've had people call in to this show and say, well, Q, did you get better at radio by sitting there watching someone else do radio or actually doing it? And for me, I'm better just doing it and then failing and making sure I don't fail again. That's me. Everyone doesn't learn the same, and I can't tell you how Fernando learns. I can't do that. Only he can do that. But I also know the National Football League, and I know that coaches are going to do what they feel like is best for not just one player, but for the whole organization. So it's a little bit different. If you're a golfer or you play tennis, you're a radio host, it's a lot of individual. But if you're a quarterback, you're the quarterback of a team. And so what's best for the team, not just one player, that's what kind of makes a difference. So that's why those guys, we always say the stupid line, that's why you get paid the big bucks, and whenever you tell someone that's why they roll their eyes at you. Like, yeah, okay, great. That's always our cop-out when we don't have to make the decision. That's why you get paid the big bucks, or that's out of my pay grade. I don't know. It's another famous line, and that's just kind of what it is. Let's see. Big Nate said if the coaches don't put the best players on the field, they'll be getting side eyes from players. Agreed 100%. Agreed 100%. And I don't remember what player it was that told us that, or what former player told us that. It might be Kirk Morrison, because we have him on the show every week, that, the players will know who needs to be out there. I don't remember who it was, so I apologize. But somebody told us that when they're going through training camp, when they're going through practices, they know who has it and who doesn't. They know who they want to be running side by side with, and who they want to be leading the charge, and who they don't. And that doesn't mean they don't like the guy. Like, I believe everyone in that locker room probably really likes Fernando Mendoza a lot. I also have heard what I've heard from different players that have stepped to the podium, that they like Kirk Cousins a lot as well. So if they like both quarterbacks and they respect both quarterbacks, what quarterback puts them in the best position to win? That's what it's ultimately going to come down to. Because there's nobody in that locker room that signs up to say, well, we're going to develop this quarterback, and in a year or two we're going to be a much better team. Nobody signs up for that. Nobody. That's why whenever it comes to the end of the season and we start talking about draft picks, nobody in that locker room cares about draft picks, because they're not guaranteed to be around. They're not guaranteed to be around to see the fruits of the labor of the draft pick. That's a front office thing. The front office cares about the draft pick. Coaches might care about the draft pick because they know what they need to build their team, but players don't. Players have one goal, probably 2 goals when they're in the National Football League. Make a lot of money and win games, and whatever order you want to put that in. Some players, it's all about money, right? I always go back to this guy, Trent Brown. I would say Trent Brown is a guy that cares more about what the game of football does for him as opposed to what he can do in the game of football. In the game of football, because he's a big old dude and can play that right tackle position, has made him a lot of money. And that's cool, right? Everyone doesn't have to be in love of the game and passionate for the game and, end all, be all, live, breathe, sleep football. They don't have to do that. John Spytek said that. Everyone doesn't have to do that. They just don't have a spot on the Raiders if they don't do that. Trent Brown would not be a John Spytek selection. I'll tell you that right now. Trent Brown would say, hey, yeah, I want to go to the Raiders. And John Spytek would say, oh, no, my brother. You got to go to another team. Because he just, again, there's a reason why a dude as big as he is and a guy that can play at such a high level when he's on has been on as many teams as he's been on. Right? It's not because he's not good, because he is when he's engaged. The problem is a lot of times he's just not. And man, I'll tell you that I don't want to say it's a waste, because he's not a waste. Everyone's got their own reasons. But, I mean, this dude's been on the Niners, the Patriots, the Raiders, the Patriots again, the Bengals, the Texans. No way that this big 6'8", 380-pound dude is on that many teams if he's really locked in and engaged and really wants to be the very best player he can be. It's just no way. All right, what you got for us?
I've got a pair of tickets to see Martin Lawrence at the Resorts World Theater on July 11th.
Nice.
Tickets are available at AXS. We're right now with me, 702-365-9200. Must be a Nevada resident. Give me a call right now. Caller 9 gets the tickets.
Boom. There you go. You want to go get your laugh on? See Martin Lawrence. Ari's got your tickets. We got Mariah Janos, Fox 5 Sports. Join us next to talk all things Aces. It's RaiderNation Radio 920.
And now Young will push. Both these clubs love the transition game. And Jackie off glass. Lloyd looking for space. Draws the foul and one. What a play by Jewel Lloyd.
Now back to Unnecessary Roughness with your boy Q. Presented by Meineke, doing car care right.
Couple plays right there. Jackie Young, Jewel Lloyd. Las Vegas Aces, 15-6 overall in the season. They have a game this evening on the road. Portland, the Fire. They're a pretty good team, expansion team. They're 9-12 overall, but you can see glimpses of them being a good team. They ain't the Valkyries, right? The Valkyries going into year 2. Now that's a team. You better watch out for them, man. What Natalie Nikasi is doing over there has been fantastic. They're 16-7. They're right behind the Aces in the ranking. It is Unnecessary Roughness here on RaiderNation Radio 920 to talk all things Aces. We bring in our good friend from Fox 5 Sports, Mariah Janos. And Mariah, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate you as always. What have you seen so far from the Aces this season as they're 15-6? They're on the road. They're coming off a loss to the Fever, but they're coming off a loss when Asia Wilson didn't play. So what have you seen so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can put a little asterisk next to that last loss. If Asia's not playing, this team is completely different. But what I've seen so far this season is kind of what we've seen to begin the start of every season of the past few years, where there's still that struggle to string together a complete game. One night either the offense is showing up or the defense is showing up. The lack of the defense being there usually in those 6 losses that you listed, those have been due to a lack of defensive effort more often than not. So that's been the struggle there. But when the offense is rolling, always good things happen, but it always starts with Asia Wilson. So this stretch recently without her, certainly a struggle for the team, but they're starting to find their rhythm a little bit. I just think now with the news that we've seen over the past few days and the waivers and the acquisitions and all the different moves, limited moves really, but it's going to be interesting to see how they move forward now, especially with this outside noise and these narratives that are starting to come into play with the team. But, they're still one of the best in the league there, boasting the best record along with the Minnesota Lynx. So they're still doing something right, but they haven't been the prettiest performances overall. But we've seen glimpses of this Aces team, and it's only a matter of time before they all start clicking and hitting their stride here.
Well, I'm not going to do what I did last year. I ruled them out. I said, hey, this ain't their year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We all did, but you can never count them out, especially just wait until September rolls around. Late August, September, then we can really – it's safe to put in a prediction. But until then, no bets are safe with this team.
Yeah, no doubt. And you mentioned, the recent movement as far as the roster goes, and the big move and the big conversation that everyone's been having is Kennedy Carter waived by the Aces. She was signed in April. I like her a lot. I know that she hasn't been able to stick on a team, but I know how talented she is. It just didn't work out for one reason or the other with the Aces. How big of a loss is that with Kennedy Carter no longer being there?
Oh, man, I am so bummed out by this. As you mentioned, she has been so fun to watch, and it felt like it was a resurgence of Kennedy Carter. We finally got it right this time. I thought she was such a boost for this team, such a legitimate spark. When you watch this woman in person play, it's like you get whiplash watching her go down the court. She is so quick and such a smooth shooter, so it's a pretty big loss in my opinion. Obviously, this Aces team, shooting is not their problem. They've got, pick your poison. They've got sharp shooters all around. So it's a bummer in terms of those fresh legs, that spark plug, that quickness coming off the bench. But in terms of the shooting, you know, you get that in Jackie and you get that in Chelsea and, of course, in Jewel. And hopefully, to me, this was also with the timing of it all. Maybe it's an indicator that Dana Evans is going to be back sooner rather than later, which is, you know, would make up for that void because she also has that speed as well. But, I mean, it's such a bummer for a player of this caliber to not be able to find a home, not be able to stick with the team, because it certainly, to me at least, it doesn't appear to be because of what she does on the court. It's more so what's going on behind the scenes. So that just stinks all around.
Yeah, it was one of those things, and I've been talking about it for a few weeks when she was inactive and she had and I'll say in air quotes, illness. I kept saying, something doesn't feel right about this. What ultimately do you think went wrong, or was it just maybe a chemistry thing?
You know, I think the chemistry was there at first.
Yeah.
When, you know, she's averaging 19 a night, second in scoring behind Asia Wilson. That's pretty dang good, and I think she was happy with that. But if you go back to May, really, I think it was Callie Finn who wrote an incredible article for USA Today about the parting of ways and the information she was able to get. She reported that after practice in May, you know, Kennedy just stepped on the scene and she was already talking about how she doesn't want the sixth man award, how she wants to be a starter. She doesn't want to be coming off the bench. And to me, after you've been exiled from the league for a couple of years, you had to go play overseas. You already got bounced by 3 other teams. You're getting another shot here. Take what you can get. Who are you to say, hey, I deserve this? Let the playing speak for itself. And, you know, maybe you would transition into a starting 5. But I think she was kind of getting a little ahead of herself because she had such a strong start with this team. And she was obviously ready to go and capable. But once that sour attitude sets in, you know, how do you reframe that? How do you come back from that? I know there was also talk where she had missed some coverages defensively. Becky still thought she needed work defensively, and she, from the reports, again, I don't know firsthand, but the reports are that she, you know, wasn't taking to the criticism too well from her teammates either when they're telling her, hey, you missed this coverage or whatever it may be. You know, rather than taking the constructive criticism and moving on with it, she seemed more combative is what I was hearing, which kind of aligns with the reputation she's had over the years.
Yes.
But again, it's just a frustrating situation because the skill is there. So when it's something like your attitude, which you are in full control of, you are a grown woman, you're an adult, and you've already seen that this league will not tolerate certain attitudes, you know, this was your chance. I feel like Becky also is the type of person where she commands respect. And if you can't get it together under her, like, I don't know if you're going to get it together under anyone, frankly.
No, I'm with you 100%. And I don't know if this is going to be Kennedy Carter's last opportunity, but it feels like if you can't get along with the Aces and you can't fit in with the Aces, where are you going to fit in the WNBA? Again, Mariah Janos from Fox 5 Sports is with us here on RaiderNation Radio 920. So when you look at Asia Wilson and, you know, she had with the foot injury, had her foot in a boot, is she coming back now? Is she coming back after the All-Star break? What are you hearing there?
Well, for that, you know, Becky had said, you know, if these are playoff games, she'd be playing. Okay. But there's no sense in rushing her back right now. You'd rather play the long game with the best player, quite literally, in the world. So I think she's nearing returning. But, again, there isn't necessarily a rush when you still have the whole back half of the season. But she is listed as a starter for the All-Star game. So I expect her to be nearing return shortly here because the team looks a little lost without her out there. And, of course, then the size factor comes into play because it's a pretty small roster overall, a small lineup, and then you've just got your one big in Asia in the middle. And I know it's kind of a positionless system that Becky runs, but, the absence is felt when Asia's not on the floor. And points aside, because we had talked to Becky about it, and, you're going to feel the absence when someone who's averaging 28 and 10 night in and night out is off the floor. But points aside, it's what she does to defenses as well. She draws defenders. She is always, at minimum, double teamed, and then she's triple teamed. And so without her in the lineup, you've got more man-to-man coverage, and the H's are getting shut down a bit more. We saw that with the Fever as well, definitely a size discrepancy there. So, obviously she is missed. And it's about the team finding their rhythm without her. I think they certainly can do it. They are talented enough. But it's really hard when you're missing the one player that really draws all the defenses. And it's what every opposing team, schemes around when they're prepared to take on the Aces.
Jackie Young, she was named to the All-Star team as well. She was, she was a reserve, but she was just named the other day. I've been very critical of, the beginning of the season for Jackie. I felt like she just wasn't locked in, or it just seemed like she got off to a slow start. But to me, and I'd rather ask you, it seems like she's starting to evolve and really come together, and the Jackie Young that we're used to seeing looks like that's who we're seeing the last few games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the start of the season, she was dealing with a lot of personal stuff as well. There were some deaths in her family or in her close personal life. So she was dealing with the mental battle of it all. And Becky had said that they're going to give her the time she needs. They're going to back off of her and kind of just feel it out. And I think she's working her way back from that. And I think also, since Chelsea Plum left, Chelsea Gray and Jackie Young started to kind of divide up responsibilities a little bit more, and Jackie's workflow changed, for lack of a better word. So I think it's been ultimately finding that rhythm, and I know that they're, a season removed from KP leaving, and she had all of last season under her belt, and clearly things worked out just fine. But I think it's just been now she's a vet on this team, and she's a leader of this team, and so she's taking on more responsibility while also trying to stick with her consistent game. As you mentioned, as of late, she's been doing that. It's Asia and her are that 1-2 punch when it comes to scoring and racking up the points now. And especially without Kennedy Carter, there is going to be even more reliance on her. And then, of course, Jewel Lloyd off the bench, too.
Well, we'll close out with this. Fantastic stuff as always. We definitely appreciate you. I mentioned the Golden State Valkyries, and obviously we all know Natalie Nikasi from her time as Becky Hammond's assistant coach, or her lead assistant coach, and what she's doing at Golden State. What have you thought about that job that she's done there from a distance, just seeing how good that team is?
I mean, it's like anyone that comes out of Becky's system, you're primed and ready to go, plug and play. And Natalie has demonstrated that she knows exactly what she's doing, and she knows what she is also looking for in players. Her systems have clearly been working flawlessly for an expansion team to step on the scene like that and to have the success that she has in her first two seasons have been absolutely incredible. But I also, the system was in place, right? Because then you looked at Chicago with Tyler Marsh, and things aren't going so hot. So I don't know if that really can be said for anyone that comes out of Becky's system. But I think, the way that Becky has spoken about Natalie, the way that Chelsea Gray recently has spoken about her, she has so much respect, and it's so clear that she knows exactly what she's doing. And it has been extremely impressive and fun to watch. With expansion teams, you're like, I don't know if I need to tune into this one. But the Valkyries have become must-see TV, and that is all attributed to Natalie Nikasi and the work that she's done out there.
It's a lot of fun to watch Golden State and the Aces go against each other and see Nikasi and Becky Hammond, them coach against each other. I think it's that's must-watch TV for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely be checking that out. Well, good stuff as always, Mariah. What are you working on that we should be on the lookout for?
Well, at the moment, I am at T-Mobile Arena for International Fight Week. The Hall of Fame ceremony is going on right now. And then, of course, McGregor and Holloway are going to be speaking shortly, and that's going to be an epic fight. So can't wait for that. And that's what I'm dialed into, at least for this week, in the never-ending sports calendar here in Vegas.
Nothing wrong with that. It's always something for us to do. Keeps us busy. Keeps us busy. Keeps us employed. And we do appreciate that. Well, Mariah, as always, fantastic stuff. Thanks so much for your time. Enjoy the fight scene over there. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, too.
All right. Absolutely. Appreciate you. Mariah Janos right there. Fox 5 Sports talking all things Aces. And, yep, McGregor back in action. He's that guy and we'll actually talk about, the fight upcoming. We'll do that coming up on tomorrow's show. But, man, he's that guy. He's one of those that will suck me in every time, right? I let it be known all the time I'm not a UFC where I have to watch every single event that they put on. I don't. I'll pick and choose. I'll cherry pick. And McGregor could be on an 18-fight losing streak. He really could, which I don't know what he's on right now, but I know he hasn't won in a while, right? But anytime he's going to be in action, all of a sudden you're like, well, am I going to watch it this weekend? Of course you're going to watch it. Right? He's just one of those. There's certain dudes that will suck you into, I have to see the action. And because I'm an old head, and I don't mind saying that, damn near 50, as Ari laughs, like Tyson is that for me. I don't care if Tyson's in action. I know it's not going to be good now. I know that. But he sucks me in. I can't help it. Like I'm the dummy that watched the whole damn Netflix special against, Jake Paul has. Ari raised his hand.
I was right there, yeah, wasting my time as well. No, but it was.
Yeah, no, it was a waste of
right.
time. I got mad at the Tyson-Roy Jones exhibition fight. Because Roy Jones was my guy back in the day, too. And I was like, oh, man, this is going to be fun, even though I knew it was an exhibition. There's certain guys that will just suck you in, and you can't help it, right? If right now Michael Jordan were to come out and say, hey, I'm going to go play Clyde Drexler, let's just throw a name out there, one-on-one, and we're going to do this for charity. Guess who's going to be front row watching? This guy. Like, there's certain players that will always suck you in, or certain fighters or whatever, especially in the fight game. Even golf, Tiger, when he was still coming back. Like, as much as I keep saying Tiger's not going to win another, forever, Ari, I said Tiger ain't going to win another one. I'm glad I saw the great Tiger when he was still great. He ain't got it no more. And then he went on to win, one more, and that weekend was fantastic. I want to say it was the Masters, but maybe it wasn't. But whatever it was, he was one more. Anytime he's in action, like, well, all right, man, I'll pull out the red polo. I'll watch, right? You got me, because I don't want to be the guy who doesn't watch it, and then everyone's like, hey, did you see what Tiger did this weekend? Like, I don't want to be that guy.
That's probably the hardest part. Even if you're just like, whatever, right. I'll check it. Maybe I'll check it. But, yeah, if you don't, then you're that guy, and then everyone's asking the question, you didn't see it? You didn't see that part? What about the clip? So you feel kind of got to be involved.
Exactly. So, yeah, McGregor being in action this weekend. There's so much going on. Obviously, Summer League's going on. Bobby Brown, I mentioned, he's going to be in action, I believe, this weekend. Martin's in town this weekend. We gave tickets away to that earlier. I mean, there's so much going on. That's never a dull moment. Let's put it like that. Even it's the middle of July, it's never a dull moment. Speaking of going on, you've got some tickets to something that's going on tomorrow as well.
That's almost exactly what I was going to say. Coming up this weekend, the Aviators, they are playing on the 11th, 7-Eleven. Got a 4-pack of tickets to see them versus the Tacoma Rainiers. Wow. At the Las Vegas Ballpark. Tickets available at Ticketmaster or caller 9 right now. Get some 702-365-9200. Must be a Nevada resident.
Boom. There it is right there. Take me out to the ball game. Ari's going to do that. He's got your tickets. We'll close out the show. Hearing from you. We'll do it next. It's RaiderNation Radio 920.
There's nothing that gets you more in the moment than that emotional connection. You're working with your teammates all summer, busting your ass, and then you're in the huddle. This is first game, first drive. You're like, okay, I've worked this entire offseason for this. And you get to connect with your brother and look him in the eyes. It gives you a sense of like, okay, we got this. We're ready to rock and roll now. And so before, any drive, I always just try to, set my guys up, get them hyped because it's like we're all interconnected.
You're listening to Unnecessary Roughness with your boy Q. Brought to you by Meineke, doing car care right.
Here we go. Just got a couple minutes left in today's show. We do want to hear from you, though, at 702-365-9200. So we'll go ahead and hustle out to the phone lines right now and talk to our guy, Raider Mike. Raider Mike, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
What's up, Q-Dog? Wow. Yeah, there's guys that you're just going to watch. Colin McGregor. That guy. The dude is a beast when he's not messed up on coke and on Bolivian marching powder. So, yeah, I'm gonna watch, and I think he's back. I want him back. There's nothing like it. It's like Tyson in his prime. You're just gonna watch. Doesn't matter. Sugar Ray, even at the end, we watched Sugar Ray Leonard. Ali at the end. Holmes beat the crap out of him. Right. We still watched. There's just Tiger. Oh God, I want him back. You want redemption? There's a guy. There's a guy. That's what and he has the ability to do it if he can pull a Conor McGregor and get the pills out of his head. So it is what it is. We're going to watch, Q. We always will.
Oh, yeah.
2 years ago was our best transition, Spytech, who hired Kubiak, and the figurehead Tom Brady. We have 3 guys in place, all at the main positions. It's not a clown show anymore. We have a generational tight end. He's probably going to go down as the best ever. Cousins knows this offense inside and out. Kubiak and him won together a lot. Just so that we might not get Fernando right out the gate. If Cousins doesn't win, all right, let's go, kid. Be a Hoosier. Go be a Hoosier. Do your thing. So anyway, that's all I got. I know we're short on time. I love the show. You're my last bash, and I announced on the morning tailgate I'll be back. Just saying, no, the transfer is 2 weeks away. That's when camp starts. Here we go. You're the only show I can call, Q.
Nice.
Later, bro. Peace.
Raiders.
No.
There he goes. Raider Mike right there. And I'm glad that Raider Mike closed things out. Ari, am I correct? Before Mariah came on from Fox 5 Sports, did I hear a promo with Raider Mike yelling out Raiders? Did I hear that?
Yes, you did hear
that. Was Raider
yeah.
Mike on that, right?
Yeah.
That was Demo Dave talking
that
about.
That was some Raiders fan yelling.
Yeah.
Wonder who.
That's awesome. There you go. See, that's the kind of impact Raider Mike made.
You know?
Right? He yelled out Raiders to the point where it sounded like it should go good at some imaging. So there you go. We did a little behind the scenes.
Boom.
Yeah, get that word of the day in. Swim. You have a few more minutes to text in swim. New York City, we're giving that trip away. Summer of fun. And on top of that, you can take the trip or take the cash. The cash is $3,000. That's all brought to you by Terribles. There'll be a new word coming up tomorrow here on RaiderNation Radio 920. Have a great night.